This is just where I'm at. You know?
Science is not perfect. The world is not perfect.
We are not perfect at science.
Human beings are not
science
perfect
itself
themselves.
Is perfect.
Because that's an argument that is being made, and I don't agree with that.
She has lost control of its direction.
And I don't know that that's the case.
Sweet, I can't wait to do that.
I go to therapy for a reason. There's some stuff that I don't even want to talk to you about. I would rather discuss it with somebody who's only going to tell their husband about it when they go home.
I'm just going to insert that clip and be like, all right, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
Hey, just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, March 9th, 1:11 p.m., episode 52.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports you can stand. And it's all completely built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come on, join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless efforts to bridge the gaps between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I am Colin.
I'm Donovan.
And coming up on this week, so we've got two pieces of congressional movement today we're going to talk about. The first is a Washington state level piece of legislature about vaccinations. And then we're going to go to the latest anti-hate House resolution.
Anti-bigotry.
Anti-bigotry. There you go. Resolution 183. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to have a conversation around the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey's appearance on Joe Rogan lately.
And Vigigati and also Tim Pool.
Indeed. And we're going to talk about all the stuff they talked about because there's some really interesting kind of free speech social media talk that I think we want to get into. And then, of course, we got an amazing topic request from Zeke. And we're going to talk about prison labor and I guess I call it the overall health of our planet.
He explained,
environmentalism.
He said when he explained it to me first, he said sustainability. And was
sustainability.
Like really, really vague about it. So that's what I'm going to give you is sustainability.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And then we'll talk about what he talked to me about, and we'll see where you're at with it.
So in other words, it's going to be an amazing show.
Yeah, it's all really big picture, and I'll address it later.
Let's do it.
Yep.
So actually, before we actually even started the show, we were talking about working yourself into a grave.
Yes. Yeah, so, well, you know what's up. I mean, we are lucky enough that Jordan doesn't have to go to work, so Jordan stays home. So I work almost 50 hours a week, at work, which is is a lot, but not that much. Some people work 80 hours a week, but I'm not going to.
We do recognize that everybody works a lot.
Right. I'm not
but that's
saying
still, it's a lot. It's a lot, man.
Especially standing in the same spot all day, not sitting down, like you're like doing things. So,
it's much easier to be moving around all the time.
Yes. Jesus. That's a really good joint that we have there. Excuse me. I'm really sorry. And then when I come home, it's hard for Jordan to get a lot of stuff done during the day because she's watching Dax all day. So, I come home and I make dinner almost every night. And I do a lot of housework when I come home and do a lot of that type of stuff. I do podcast stuff. I'm away every Saturday doing this. Every other week I get a blog post out. I didn't do the audio one because that takes quiet and time, and that's a hard trifecta to meet. But eventually that will be easier. But just with an infant, that's hard. But so you have to, and like I said, you can't sacrifice the time that you take for yourself because you have to be able to take a second and center yourself and be okay, or else you won't make it through being a parent. No. And if you can't,
I can't imagine.
My last blog post was about work really I can hardly focus on it, because being a dad is what I'm focused on, doing shit in my house, just doing little projects and just helping with Dax, making sure Jordan's not worn out, making sure that the division of labor is there, and that's really, really stressful just in itself to be that in your head
Yeah.
all the time. And so you have to be able to separate yourself from that. And if you don't have the time for that, then you won't be able to do that, especially like Dax, he doesn't usually want to go to sleep until like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I'm waking up at 4. I can't stay up that late. So I go to bed at like 10 at the latest. Jordan stays up until midnight. And then if she's lucky, he'll sleep until 8 o'clock in the morning. Last night I told you we were really lucky because he took a bath and then he ate for a long time and then he fell asleep at 10 and slept all the way until 6 and only ate one time. Like that's fucking awesome.
So
that's amazing.
crazy. That's like a whole night's sleep.
Like it's rare.
Keep them on that.
And not all babies are like that. Some babies sleep all the time. It's really easy. Some babies don't at all. So, and you never know until they're here how it's going to be,
10 to 6. That's a long time. That's like, what, 7 hours? Or?
Super long time. Yeah. And that's, especially right now he's growing. So he's eating like every 2 hours. So for him to go 3.5 hours without eating.
That's a big one.
That's a long time. So
when he wakes up, he is hungry, I bet.
And it's important to, Jordan doesn't get that much time for herself like that, except for like when I get home, and that's even then, there's still a lot of stuff that she has to do because she's breastfeeding and stuff. But very soon, we're going to let somebody watch the baby and we're going to go and do something by ourselves. Like it's important to have things like that. So especially because when the baby first gets there, if Carolina is nursing and stuff, then she will probably take time off, while you take some time off, but then go back to work probably before she does, and so it's important.
Yeah, that's all right. She'll be a Twitch goddess by then. Anyways.
Because I don't feel like there is that much, like there is that many resources for like the dad side of like having a kid, So I am not by any means, just for anybody who fucking whatever. I'm not trying to belittle, the maternal side of having a kid because that's something I can't even imagine, but I'm just telling you as a father and as what I assume, the division of labor when it comes to finances will be, it's important to.
Well, you're shifting into a literal have to support your family mode.
And the way I think it was Jordan Peterson that I heard put it this way, right? So in the first year, 2 years if you count like being pregnant, right? So in the first 2 years of a baby's life, it's the father's job to take care of the mother so she can take care of the baby. Like, that's how that is, in the rawest like sense,
the primal sense. Yeah.
And I very much identify with that, especially like I said, with Jordan staying home, that's my job right now. My job is to make sure that we have enough money and then to come home and make sure that the house is okay so she can be taking care of the baby and I can help at the same time doing what I can do.
Look at you developing those conservative values.
I have always been very traditional when it comes to
like
family values like that. And part of that, I am sure, comes from being from a very non-traditional family when I was growing up, So I was like, so craving that as a child, I'm sure that related to this is what I want as an adult, this is what I want, So that was something I was always very clear and upfront with every girlfriend I've ever had, because I've always been so emotional, that the first girlfriend I ever had, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to marry her, even though I'm 10 years old. So, everyone.
We've all gone through that.
So everyone, I'm like, listen, this is how it's going to be. Like, I'm going to be making hella dollars and you're going to be at home taking care of the motherfuckers because this is like, what's up?
This is what's up.
And if you're not down, then this is not going to work. So.
Man, you're so patriarchal.
I know. People hate it, but that's just what I like,
I mean, if I think about it, no, I'm not going to do that. But, what if, say, Carolina, because she's started Twitch and, she had, every time she does this thing, she has like exponential growth almost.
Yeah.
And, if she gets in a position one day where she's going to do that full time. And at that time, especially if there's going to be a kid involved.
Yeah.
I might have to stop working to take care of the kid while if she maintains that high revenue stream,
viable. Yeah. So certainly,
and
we've had that discussion. And again, it's only because,
which I still think fits with conservative values, by the way.
Certainly and like I said, we've had that discussion because if we're Jordan to have a job that made more money than I did and like wouldn't cost us any more money, everything would be legit, I'll stay home. I don't give a fuck. I'll do it. I don't care at all. I'll do it. Like if that's what makes the most sense. But right now, the job that I'm in, because it's such a particular finite field, you know, and I'm able to...
You just do it because it makes fiscal sense.
And I'm able to negotiate, not even negotiate, like talk about raises and shit when it needs to be done. You know, when I need more money, I can be like, listen, I need more money.
Yeah, I'm moving up.
This is where we're at, you know?
I'm moving up in the next stage of my life.
I'm in a very unique area where...
And your bosses are people that are very unique because they understand and will respond to that.
Exactly.
Because they want everybody at their place. I mean, they literally treat them like family. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It goes so counterintuitive to like the traditional like greedy business sense.
Yeah.
Which is it's a refreshing thing to see. It's a very refreshing thing to see all the time.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to it at all. Like I said, if she were to be in a position to make more money than I did, then
the dollars.
I'll stay at home. Like, you know, she wouldn't have to pump or something like that. And if we could figure out food and everything worked, then I don't care. I'll do it. Like that's something that I'll do. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not mad at it.
As Ilhan Omar would say, it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
It's all about the Benjamins. Oh my God. I love that.
That is how you do a segue, my friend.
Yeah. So, before we start the show, you can find us on Facebook at Salt of the Streets. You can find us on Instagram at Salt of the Streets. You can also find us at saltofthestreets.com for everything. We have our personal social medias. I'm at Salt of the Street singular on Twitter and alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. He is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. YouTube at Salt of the Streets, and like I said, Facebook.com or saltofthestreets.com for everything. So we are going to start with...
We should shout out the pre-show real quick because we just had an outstanding pre-show.
The best one, highest rated one we've ever had is what we just did. It was so much fun. It was fantastic. So I would...
People were jumping in. We were having conversations. Yeah. It was a great time. Everybody had a lot of fun.
If you haven't listened to it or watched it, I would implore you to go back. It was a great one. We had lots of interactions, lots of talk. I think you really enjoy it.
And now you have no excuse. It's on your podcast feed and it's in your YouTube feed. You got it. Oh, I love having the pre-show out now. Pre-show is a lot of fun.
It's good.
But anyways, like my segue, it was like a overreach segue because we're not going to talk about Ilhan for a minute.
for a little bit. We are going to start with a local bill, Washington State bill, House Bill 1638 that just, I believe, on Friday, right, passed the House. It passed 57-40, 0 absent, 1 excused.
I got Tuesday. We'll just say Tuesday? It passed this week.
I don't, this is as of Saturday, so that's all. I don't.
Oh, yeah, that's
and I
right.
don't remember, I read the article yesterday, so maybe that's what I'm thinking. It's just that I read the article yesterday. So, this week, it passed the House, right, the Washington State House of Representatives. And House Bill 1638, we also referenced in episode 48, but it has to do with repealing the personal exemption for vaccinating your children in order for them to go to public daycare, public schools, and things of that nature. So, super interesting, right? We talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, and it's obviously causing a lot of debate around the state and around the country because this is something that happened in California. California has repealed the personal exemption. There's a couple of states that have already repealed a personal exemption but maintain a religious exemption, which is what would happen in this case. A religious exemption would still exist because there is no way in fuck you could get rid of that and
can't do it.
Have it last because that would, as everybody knows, be infringing on your religious freedom to practice whatever religion you want. So, because if you're a Christian Scientist and you want to deny modern medical care, you are allowed to do that. And while we don't agree with it, that is your right. So
I'm not totally sure, but I bet you Scientology has a loophole in there too.
Probably. And also like Jehovah's Witness, I don't know where they sit on vaccinations, but like, you know, they don't take other people's blood and stuff like that. So that may very well be part of the jam.
Very strange.
So where I personally say, we'll talk about our personal opinions, even though that's not the focus of this.
Did we actually say what the bill did yet?
Yeah. Okay. It repeals again. Well, just in case, it repeals the personal exemption for vaccination, for the MMR vaccination, we should specify, for the combination measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination, in order to get your child to enroll your child into daycare or public school. And there's something else.
Yeah, any kind of government funded support system or anything that's public.
And this comes in reaction to a large outbreak of at least 52 confirmed cases of measles.
More than that now.
It's
I found out
60s, right?
the website to go to be able to get the most update, and they update it almost daily.
So what's the number now?
The number right now is 71 confirmed cases, and this was as of Friday.
And has anybody died yet?
I don't know if it didn't say anything about being any deaths yet, but the one thing I want to point about the numbers is that this is focused majorly, like 99.9%, in one county.
Yes.
There is one case in King County, but there's 70 cases in Clark County.
And it's Clark County, and Clark County sits... it's 4 cases in Oregon. That's what I'm thinking, not 4 deaths. 4 cases in Oregon. That's what I'm thinking. Sorry. So this county sits right above Portland, and it encompasses like Vancouver and a couple other areas, right? Because that's where the representative is from that sponsored this.
I don't want to screw up the geography of our state. I'm just going to pull up the map.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Anyway,
I think so.
Colin's going to find out for us because he's smart. Okay,
yeah, it's just Portland, Vancouver.
Yeah,
it's right just north of Portland.
That's where the representative is from that introduced this bill, or that
it's her district.
Yes, and so 71 is that what you said? 71 cases of measles that have been confirmed, and it started with like 2 or 3 adults, I believe, that had not been vaccinated, right?
Yeah,
and that's where it started. And then most of the cases have been children who are between 7 and 10 years old, that have not been vaccinated, right? So this bill is in response, like I said, to all of these cases. And I think, to its credit, it comes with the best intentions, right? Because the intent is to protect the general public. And I think that really is the case. I don't buy into any of the propaganda, really, that they're trying to, I don't know, that any of the nonsense, right? I don't buy any into that, right? I truly think that it's done with the best intentions.
Yeah, because the conspiracies around it are like it gives you autism, or it can have something mental negative effects to you,
which I would like to point out for everybody, right? There is zero scientific or medical evidence that indicates any connection between the combination MMR vaccine or any vaccines and autism or any type of developmental delays or disorders in any way. There was one study in the early 2000s that was found later, it might even have been in the late 90s, but was found to be false in the early 2000s that showed a connection, but it, like I said, was found to be false. Dr. Andrew Wakefield had his medical license stripped for having done that false research. There is no, regardless of what anybody says, there is no medical or scientific evidence to show any correlation between those two.
It almost feels at this point like at least once a month there is a new debunking article that comes out. Sometimes it's in scientific, legitimate scientific journals, and a lot of times it's just in the regular newspapers. But I mean, it's consistently always coming out. It drives me insane.
So personally, right, this is where I sit with it.
You were saying that before we kind of give our opinions on this.
Yes.
You said that you're sure they have done it with the best intentions.
I feel confident that they have.
Yes.
I can never be certain, but I feel confident that this bill truly was put in place with the best of intentions, because this representative who sponsored it is representative for the county where all of these people are being infected with the measles virus.
Yeah. And as like a libertarian, libertarians are torn on this issue because it's more government control essentially, and it's forcing you to say that you have to put a foreign agent into your body, which is very, very sketchy.
Manufactured by the government.
Yeah. And see.
Well, not by the government, but.
By government funded organizations.
Right.
But.
Regulated by the government.
Yeah. And while that is indeed the case, there are certain times where I don't think the government is necessarily bad.
Yeah.
This is one of these things that I think we have to come to terms with, like fucking the police department and the cops. And, we have to come to terms with these are things that we want to fund because, you can be a libertarian-minded person and still believe in the big freedoms of life, but understand that in our modern society, we have it pretty good.
Right.
And it's not free. We pay for it, and we can argue all day about how that money's being spent, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of services that even modern day libertarians can't not say they want.
I agree. Correct, right, or not correct? Right?
Oh yeah,
because you don't know,
but I was gonna say, but they always say the road to hell is paved by good intentions.
Yes,
and so it does have the possibility of it going awry. It could. It is not without certainty, or it isn't certain that could not happen. But I have enough faith in humanity, even in the government at this case, to believe that it will not.
Yes.
I think it'll be okay because it's proven itself time and time again.
I feel that we are past the time where we secretly tested things on the population without telling them,
Yes.
there's no question that there is definitely documentation and evidence to show that they tested syphilis on the Tuskegee Airmen, and things like that. Shit like that has happened before. And I'm not saying that it hasn't. I'm not denying that because it has. There's evidence of it.
Yeah.
My point is that I think that we're a little bit past that. There's already been evidence that's come out that it's happened before. That type of shit can't get by now. It doesn't work, especially with social media and with all, the people that reality winter and people that are working with the government that are willing to take documents and release them when they find them. It's not going to happen because no matter, even if those people got put to death, right? Even if President Trump got so radical that he took reality winter and people like that and put them to death for having released classified documents, Edward Snowden, if shit like that. Even if those people were put to death, that would still happen. People are still going to do that, people are going to make it. There are certain people within the United States that will make it their job to get into the government so as to find documents that need to be released to the public.
I was going to say,
that's how America is.
If that was to happen, that would be the greatest single disaster in our society's existence. Yes. Because the minute you did that, every single, you would have a martyr on your hands and there would be a massive, revolt against the government from within it. It classified, well, is the latest guy that's going to hand it off somebody not going to be pissed off enough that he wants to release it?
Right.
Because it's some bullshit. You're going to have a massive explosion in the government if that were to ever happen.
So personally, right, I find myself in a strange position because, as we've discussed before, I am in favor of vaccinations because I think that medical science advances to certain points for a reason, right? That exists so as to keep people from getting, especially children, from getting polio, from getting measles, from getting mumps, from getting rubella, from getting diseases they don't need to get, right? We have evolved past this point. That's why we have vaccinations for them, right? That's why we've been able to test them to see that they're safe, that people can have them in masses. And it turns out, okay, a vast majority of the time, right? Because there are certainly some people who have negative reactions, some people who are allergic to the vaccinations themselves, who get it and have a terrible reaction. That does happen. That's
why we have medical waivers.
And it's, people often think that it's callous, to think of it as a margin of error, but science is not perfect in any capacity, and that's why the Challenger exploded, that's why things like this happen, because even though at NASA you check over things 100 fucking times before anybody goes into space because you're putting men into space, shit happens. Things still happen. Science is not perfect. The world is not perfect.
We are not perfect at science.
Human beings are not
science
perfect themselves.
Science itself is perfect.
So, like I said, I personally agree with it because that's where I sit with it. I think that we've evolved to that point for a reason. But the libertarian, classical, liberal part of me is not a fan of the idea of being forced to get something right. And it's not that you have to do it. It's that if you want your child to be enrolled in public or private school that receives any type of state or federal funding, that they will have to have vaccinations or proof of vaccination records or proof of immunity from a doctor. And so the option is always there to go to like a private preschool, you know, and like a private like homeschool type of deal. But that's not an option for everybody, you know.
No, it's a very select, you know, few. It's a very small percentage that can not have to deal with the public education system.
Yeah. And I don't by any means mean to belittle that, because my kid is going to go to public school. I don't have money to go to find any shit like that.
I would love to be able to do that.
Right. But that's not
that's why I'm for school choice, baby.
So I suppose for really lack of any other option, it's something that I understand and obviously don't want to put my kid at risk for it, because I don't know, you know, but I got a hard time with forcing other people to do something. And like I said, I'm in a weird spot because it's something I agree with, you know. I think that people should be getting their kids vaccinated, because most of the time when people have some type of personal reason, it's because they believe some type of shit that isn't true, you know, or they're ignorant to it or something, you know, there's something wrong with what's going on there.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a reason this is called a public health issue.
Yeah.
And that's why at some point it has to be a public decision to what to do. I mean, this is if you allow people to say that they, you know, if you pass this law, right? Does that not somehow impede? No, if you allow anti-vaxxers to just be anti-vaxxers, you know, anybody can be an anti-vaxxer, whatever, you know, get immunized and hopefully you'll be okay. This is just going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, would that be protected essentially from almost? Because you're doing harm to the public at that point, is what I'm trying to say.
And it could be
you are
argued,
doing harm to the public, which means you by exercising this right of freedom of expression are now, it has effects towards my life potentially. You know, I am in direct conflict now with the disease that I didn't, you know, that we could have as a country gotten rid of.
Right.
And now you're putting me in the life of my family and my neighbors and everything. So,
especially because the vaccine isn't perfect. Like, just because you got it doesn't mean that you'll never get it.
No.
You know, there's still a chance that you can get measles if somebody has it.
There's always a small percentage.
There's always a chance that you can get it. And that's not to say,
that's why it's important.
But
that's why, you know, it's important that everyone else, as many people as possible, get vaccinated, because it creates that what is that? The cloud of protection or something, whatever they call it.
Yeah, whatever that's called.
Yeah. So if you have 100 people in a room and one of them isn't immunized, there's a very, very good chance that she's never going to, you know, that person is ever going to come into contact with that disease. Yeah. But, you know, the more people you have drop out, the bigger it spreads and it gets gnarly. And so I think now, you know, regardless, you're still going to have to do it. This is a public, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're both on the same side on this one. And I don't want to just repeat it over and over again. So let me just ask you this. Since it passed the House, the State House,
yes,
you know, 57-40, they are 57 Democrats and 41 Republicans in the House. So one of those seats I think is empty. So essentially, it looks like it was just literally split on party lines.
And it's just because and the Democrats control the Senate too, right?
Yeah, 57-41.
It's like that.
No. In the Senate,
yeah,
they still control the House, 27-20,
and that's in the Senate.
And that's in the Senate.
So I don't see. You're going to ask me if I think it passes the Senate?
Yeah,
I don't see why not. I think that it almost definitely gets challenged by at least one person in the state who has enough money to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that, and I'm not a lawyer, you know, but you get enough doctors that go in there, because you can't get a doctor to argue on the side of personal exemption. You know, there's no medical evidence for them to cite for that. There's this guy, what's his name? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that, and I saw a picture of him, and I don't know
Is he a
that.
Kennedy?
I don't think that he's a Kennedy. So but I think that I don't know. I'm really confused.
Maybe his parents were just trying real hard.
But he's like a big anti-vaxxer, and he said that he said we don't know the risk, of this, of this personal. And and there's no safety testing, and that's not the case. This has been tested numerous times. That's just a lie. It's just false information.
Joker? Is he a doctor?
No, he's just a guy. I don't know where he comes from or anything.
Just another ignorant public figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know the problem is I don't know the makeup of our Senate, political, on their political ideologies and stuff. So is there, and I don't know, because we focus so much on the federal level. We know the numbers pretty well. You need a 60-vote majority, all this stuff, but obviously you can't have a 60-vote majority in the House Senate. So I don't know is that above the threshold for a veto proof?
I think so. I think that you just need a majority in our state legislature, but that's something that I would have to fact check to be certain.
And then I would assume, which is kind of weird, because it's.
And if it goes to Jay Inslee, he'll definitely sign it. He's the one that put out the public health state of emergency for it. So
which has cost the state over $1 million already, by the way.
In what? Where's
I
that
think
money
it's
going?
the amount of public healthcare assistance and stuff that people have to get. People that are on Medicaid, stuff like that. The government has to foot the bill. There's a lot of subsidies and insurance. Anybody that's got Obamacare, that's all subsidized by the government.
And those people are going to get vaccinated and shit.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's weird, man.
Well, you get sick with, there's a lot of hospitalizations.
Yeah.
And it's a very expensive thing. It's not a good deal, man. So but I guess the only problem, I was reading an article about this earlier, and they had kind of posed the question, is it still going to pass? Because the 105-day legislative session for the state of Washington ends April 28th. So it ends in just over, a month and a half.
Yeah.
And I don't know, can the Senate debate it, good enough and vote on it in that amount of time? I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because, it's hard to watch and stay as involved on the federal level and on the state level.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's hard to maintain those, the inner workings of the politics that's at play there. So who knows if it'll actually pass and get signed, but it's on its way up. Fucking Inslee's too busy out there campaigning for president to give a shit, probably.
Which I think is unfortunate because he's not going to win. But
yeah, how much money is that wasting?
A lot.
Oh.
A lot of money and a lot of time. But it's... I don't know. I like I said, I feel I'm trying to formulate a final opinion. But I feel conflicted on it. I think that it is obviously in the best interest of the public, but there's a lot of people that are going to be unhappy because they're not.
Because now they're being told.
For whatever reason, and that's not I don't understand why, but for whatever, any number of reasons it could be, they're not going to be able to think themselves to the point that you did, where you're in the end, it's a public health concern, and this is what needs to be done. No, I don't like it either because I'm sure you don't, but this is what needs to be done so as to avoid people from bringing back diseases that we have all but eradicated from the earth.
I think from a libertarian's point of view, there are so few of you truly out there. It should behoove you to want to make sure they don't get measles and die because your ideas will spread more. You need the numbers. So make sure they get vaccinated. Libertarians for vaccinations. It's a new coalition. It's a new super PAC we're going to start.
I'll put money in that pack.
Yeah. Oh, we're about to talk about some PACs here in a second, aren't we?
So if anybody has any questions, any opinions, anything like that on that, obviously let us know in the comments or wherever you're watching or listening to this, or you can always reach out to us on any of our social medias. Let us know what you think. So next, you want to move on to the anti-bigotry resolution that passed in the House, correct?
Yeah.
So do you want to give a little bit of background in this, right? Because it started with Ilhan Omar.
Yes.
Freshman representative from Minnesota. Democrat. Yeah.
Men. Fresh men.
Yeah, and some of the controversial tweets are from several years ago.
2012 was the first recorded.
But some of them are much more recent than that.
Yes, and especially the one that spurred on this resolution here. And
actually,
was actually deleted.
Before you continue,
yes.
It's important to note only for the content of this conversation, not because we believe in intersectionality or any of that bullshit, right? She is an immigrant from Somalia who is a Muslim, and she is also the first representative to wear a hijab while in the House.
Yes.
Right?
There was a rule that was passed in the House of Congress.
Yes.
After she was elected that removed that rule where, you weren't allowed to wear head coverings, which, depending on how you look at that perspective, is a good thing.
Yes.
And a fundamentally strange thing. But I think, at least in today's world with today's mindset, I think it's a good thing. 100%.
Correct. So only for the context of this conversation is that important.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And actually, if you want the inside scoop on intersectionality, you should go over and listen to my blog post from this week. If you haven't, I broke down a little Culture War 101 on my newly named, I minted my own blog post.
Yeah.
Because I made it my own. And it's called The Birdcage, Offie's Birdcage.
You're funny.
It makes me happy. But anyways, go check that out. I talk about what intersectionality is and where it comes from. And it's important to note that you have an understanding of what intersectionality is before you really can probably grasp some of the finer nuances going on here in the background. So anyways, back in 2012, well, no, we'll skip up to the one that really just got her in trouble. The problem is she's made a lot of anti-Semitic statements over the years.
Yeah.
Since she's been in politics, even back on the state level. And so it's just kind of goes, oh, okay, I got it. So anyways, this last one was it was during I can't remember the exact date, but it was on a weekend. And I remember because I listened to it when I was shoveling snow. So it was during Snowpocalypse.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago. And, but she had responded to a tweet from one of your favorite people, Glenn Greenwald.
Yep.
And said, when he said the GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib over the criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking the free speech rights of Americans. And she responded by saying, it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Yes.
And
and okay, so and that implies because before I want to say that I had a hard time with this, right? Because I'm not Jewish, and so not that I'm saying I don't even fucking see when anybody says any racist shit or anything, but it's not like something that's so blatant to me, to see underlying like anti-Semitism that is being argued here, right? Because the implication in that is that there are Jews in America that are paying politicians to influence the policy on Israel that we have in the government, which is to a certain extent is true. There are Jewish people that are contributing to politics, but that is not directly to influence the policy that we have on Israel.
Yeah. There is actually a PAC that is. It's called which she has called out once before. It's AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
But they don't make political contributions.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But that's part of the thing that people get lost on here, is that there is technically a Jewish PAC, but they don't actually make political contributions here. So that's not.
They're just
that's not even a
body.
thing. And so by purely factual, you would be correct that yes, there's definitely Jewish people out there that contribute to political campaigns,
right?
And I'm sure fund,
as they are legally allowed to do.
Exactly. That's the way the system works. You can totally do that. But the problem is, depending on your interpretation of it, there is a conspiracy that the Jews hold all the gold.
Jews run America.
Yeah, and they run the world. There's this giant. They're the fucking globalists.
Which we don't believe or condone here at Salt of the Streets.
No, it's
just to
absolutely
fucking put it
ridiculous.
on the record.
And so by saying it's all about the Benjamins, baby, referring to a, Glenn Greenwald talking about U.S. political leaders essentially being bribed or paid to, side with the state of Israel.
Which I think that context also gets lost, right? It's rarely reported that she's like the tweet that she's responding to, just that she said that, And I think the context is super important. Like, I know that Ben Shapiro talked about this whole thing because it's important, but
he's talked about this nonstop for like a week.
Like both of these tweets, like this
Yes.
whole section where a lot of places are just saying, "Oh, she said this." It's all about the Benjamins in reply to a tweet.
I re-listened to all those episodes, by the way, last night.
So it's interesting to see the difference, right? That
It is.
Ben Shapiro is like, no. To see the problem, you have to look at what she's responding to. When a lot of other places are just saying that she's in response to a tweet, she said this.
Yeah.
And that totally takes away what the fuck she's talking about. If she's just saying Israeli policy is all about the Benjamins, like, no shit, American fucking politics is all about the money. Like, in that case, you're just saying something that's a fact. But when it's paired with what she's responding to in that context, that doesn't look very good.
No.
So
it does not look good.
Yeah. So what's the next one? Because that wasn't that long ago. That was just a couple weeks ago, right?
That was the latest. That was the nail in the coffin.
Oh, okay. That was the last one.
And I don't remember if that's the one that she deleted, but she had later on said that Jewish money is responsible for American Israel support and referred to AIPAC.
Yeah.
But she had since apologized for that one and walked it back. She's had to...
Because it's factually incorrect. Because
Yes.
as we said, AIPAC does not make political donations.
Yeah. In fact,
Political contributions.
they are a bipartisan lobbying group.
Yeah.
And if you were not aware of this, people that do tend to believe that conspiracy, which is what it is, also tend to believe that the notorious Jews, as it were, are more of a kind of capitalist. They're always the rich upper class elites. And, so that makes them generally conservative and, in your typical, like Prager, Dennis Prager. That's like your typical... They're conspiracy Jew.
That's your
But they
typical
don't
Jew.
realize that some of the most prominent left activists are also Jewish, and there is a massive, a majority of the population of the the Jewish population that is leftist.
Yeah.
They're split up just like anyone else. And but anyways, that actually, by definition, so we'll go back to it's all about the Benjamins, baby. Right?
Yep.
Because do you think this is an anti-Semitic trope? Is that statement an anti-Semitic trait or statement?
I certainly don't think it looks very good.
Yeah. It's not like real blatant.
Right.
But you're obviously, you are calling on the trope that you're referring back to the Jewish money conspiracy, aren't you?
Yeah.
When in that context, which by definition, under the, let's see here, what is it? By the State Department, believing in one of those conspiracies is by definition anti-Semitism.
Really?
Yes, it absolutely is. Calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews, often in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. These are some examples of anti-Semitism by the State Department. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, especially but not exactly the myth about the world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions.
Oh, shit.
That is
oh, my God. That's what it says?
That's what it says.
Oh,
that is a
by government definition, then that is by no question anti-Semitic. That's unfortunate.
See, I am so glad.
Oh, man.
Because I wanted to have
That's
the opportunity to do that. Because when you read the definition,
oh, that's bad.
It is by definition an anti-Semitic statement.
Yeah, that's no good.
And so now the fun part about this is now watching the reaction in Congress to this situation.
Because that was, I think, what what caused Democrats the biggest problem, right?
Yes.
Was obviously this was a problem, but as seen by evidence of Steve King, it's something that a political party can get over. You know, you deal with them.
What is the Steve King thing?
So Steve King, and I'm trying to pull up some of his tweets here
because we've talked about it before, I think.
So Steve King is a Republican representative who was recently stripped of his committee assignments for making numerous racist tweets, right?
Yeah.
And
the one that really foot the bill was towards the end there. It said something about how, why is being a white nationalist wrong?
Yes.
Something like that. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And
that wasn't even a tweet. Yeah, that he was being interviewed and said that. So he said a lot of shit that especially Democrats had a problem. It said that it was racist, right? So after this, Republicans are like, you know what? You're right. That's super racist, and we're going to take him off all these committees because, which many people would argue is not enough, right? If he's a racist and people are going to admit it, then he should be...
You should kick him out of Congress.
Right. But he's saying he's not a racist. He just says racist shit, you know? That's... I don't even know if I can get into a conversation about, does saying racist stuff make you a racist? I don't...
And we've talked about that before, so I just want to give a little background on that if we're going to reference it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially because it's going to be important later.
Yes.
Steve King said... While there's understanding that culture and demographics are our destiny, we can restore our civilization with somebody else's babies. And that was in reference to another tweet it's going to pull up here.
Yeah.
So said a lot of stuff that is widely not cool.
Pretty white supremacy.
Yes. And so
heavy in the white supremacy.
Yeah.
But he was eventually called out for it, and they, like you said, they stripped him of all his committee seats and all of his assignments.
Yes.
So he is just there. He
just votes now.
He just votes now, and
all he
half the time he just votes present, which means that your vote goes nowhere.
Which is what he did this time.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to. But
it was House Resolution 40, by the way.
Yes. So there's another thing that we'll get to, right? Because obviously there were Jews in both parties that came out that were
highly offended.
Yeah, highly offended in the things that she had said and demanding apologies. The head of one of the committees, his name is Elliot Engel. He's a head of one of the committees in the House of Representatives. He came out and demanded an apology, but then also said that he wasn't going to punish her, which was really weird. And there's Jim Clyburn, who is the...
Jim Clyburn?
Yeah, Jim Clyburn is the majority whip
yes,
for the Democrats in the House. He was asked about the statements, and I have it here. My computer is just slower than all shit, so it's going to take me a minute to get to it.
Oh, that's funny.
It was. Elliot
He's a
Engel.
representative from the Bronx too, by the way.
Yeah, and he's the head of one of the committees. I just don't remember which committee it is.
Oh, I actually have to click the Wikipedia link. I'm sure it'll be in there.
And we'll tell you.
There we go.
So he came out and demanded an apology and said that what she said was anti-Semitic and that her remarks had no place on committees or in the House.
Ooh, that just got exciting. He's the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
So that's what it is, right?
Ilhan Omar sits on.
Yes.
As a freshman representative, by the way.
Which is
strange.
That
was part of their deal with Nancy Pelosi when they got in.
Because the Foreign Affairs Committee is such a prestigious committee that it generally takes a while to get there.
Yeah, that's a experienced members only club usually.
Yes. So,
which is fine because it's up to the parties to make that call.
Yeah.
They can put whoever they want in.
There's numerous people, including Elliot Engel, and like I will say, Jim Clyburn, I'll go over that in just a minute, that came out in defense of what she said and said that she wasn't being anti-Semitic, she's just speaking on American policy on Israel, right? Which is something that you could argue if you ignored the facts, right? Because, again, as we went over, AIPAC doesn't make political contributions, so the money that flows through there could in no way influence Israeli policy since they don't make political contributions.
Nope.
in reference to everything being all about the money, when Glenn Greenwald is talking about money that flows into the government to influence Israeli policy.
Indeed.
That would certainly imply, it could be argued that it doesn't, but it seems to me that it implies that it would be Jewish money that it would be influencing Israeli policy, right? And one thing that
Glenn Greenwald is Jewish, is he not?
I do not know. I cannot attest to that.
I think he's an ethnic Jew.
So Jim Clyburn, right? This is an article from McClatchydc.com.
Again, he's the House Majority Whip, right?
Yes. And a whip is like he's like more senior. He's a more senior member of the party, and his job is to, when it's time to vote, he gets people in line. He gets the votes counted. He finds out where they're at and how many votes they need, and so that he works with the leadership directly to get things done, right? So Clyburn has suggested, and like I said, this is a quote from ClatchDC.com. Clyburn has suggested over the past week that colleagues be empathetic to Omar, pointing out she lived through the trauma of a Somali refugee camp in Kenya during her formative adolescent years. Very different from the descendants of slaves and relatives of Holocaust survivors who claim intimacy with similar horrors. And this is a quote. A lot of people in this caucus will talk about slavery. We never experienced slavery. A lot of our people will talk about the Holocaust. You didn't experience the Holocaust. You may have inherited its legacy, and I've inherited the legacy of slavery, said Clyburn, the highest-ranking black member of Congress. Ilhan Omar lived in a refugee camp. She brings that experience to this body with her, and I think we need to honor and respect that and not beat up on her. So
that is intersectionality at play.
So I agree that we certainly should respect the experiences that she has in her life, because that's going to influence who she is as a person. But to act as though that somehow negates the things that she says, that I don't understand, right?
Yep.
The other thing I was really confused by is I don't know that much about Jim Clyburn, so I can't speak to him directly, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to certainly the newer freshman members of the political party, of the Democratic Party, they don't agree with that, because they're still talking about how people are being affected by slavery today. They're demanding reparations. A lot of these people running are demanding reparations.
Yep.
So to talk about how slavery, like in this, to say like it's slavery doesn't really matter, because none of these people who are alive now were influenced by it anyway. Like it's something we should remember, but she just experienced that. So we need to like really pay attention to that. Like I said, as though it somehow negates what she said and though it's racist, right?
And it's important to say, because he's assuming that, because again, this is the effect of looking at it through an intersectional lens.
Yes.
Now, her oppression is higher on the scale of importance to give this merit, but in reality, though her experiences that put her there make her the person she is today, who we should be looking at, not basing our judgment off of what she went through. We should be basing our judgment off of what's going on right in front of us.
Because I don't, like, it's almost like he's saying that we should just feel sympathetic to her, and we should like let it go because she's been through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
And these other people who are saying that it's offensive because they have family members who went through the Holocaust. Like, it's not really because, that was so long ago, but like I don't really understand that, it seems to me that we should,
we have sympathy for what she went through. We get that. But that's not what we're talking about.
It seems to me the more logical line of thinking is that we should respect and honor where she's come from and the progress that she's made, And yeah. I think that it's important to know, right? Not that because it doesn't excuse it, but it's interesting to know that she is Muslim, right? So it's not like wholly surprising that she would have those views on Israel, that she doesn't like believe, she doesn't agree with the current policy on Israel, with what's going on there. She doesn't think that it should be its own state within everything that's going on, because it's a Jewish state surrounded by a Muslim state, right?
It's very complicated.
So
let's just say that.
Right. So I'm not saying it excuses it, but it's not totally surprising that, especially because she doesn't come from an Americanized, like if she was Muslim from America, she might have more Americanized political views, but because she's come from Somalia, she's not going to have the same type of views on Israel that she might have were she raised here.
Yeah,
and
because
I'm not,
you are affected in some way by your surroundings.
Right, and I'm not arguing any type of way. I'm just thinking logically, right? That her opinion is going to be based partially from where she's from and the way that she was raised. And the opinions that are going to come out in Somalia, especially in a refugee camp, are going to be different than would be here. And I'm not by any means saying an excuse, because it doesn't. She's still absolutely is culpable for what she said and is fucked. Like that's anti-Semitic. It's racist. That's not cool. I'm not saying that it's okay, but I think it's not surprising to me is what I'm saying. It's not totally surprising to me that she would say something like this. Mm-hmm. It's shocking to me that there are members of Congress, numerous members of Congress, that are willing to defend it, and are saying, well, we got to think about where she came from, because I agree, but the same argument could be made for Steve King. If he's from the South, raised in a time when it's okay to be kind of racist, then why is that not cool? But she can be racist to Jewish people.
Yeah.
Because she's, like you said, like that's,
you cannot,
because what he said, it doesn't automatically make me think of intersectionality and oppression hierarchy. Like you kind of said it, like Ben Shapiro said earlier this week, right? But when you start talking about her ability to say things like that, but Steve King is not allowed to say things like that, that's where it seems to be unfair to me, right? Because that's the same thing. Regardless of what anybody says, even this new progressive idea of only white people can be racist, right? Because that's bullshit. On the level of everybody can be racist, Steve King saying racist shit and her implying racist shit is the exact same thing, because they're both representatives, right? It's unfortunate because he's a more senior and he really should know better. But if she's going to be a representative, she should know better because she's in the House now, right? And there was something else she said. There was a group that she came out in support of, and I can't fucking remember what their name is. Ben Shapiro was talking about it, but it's a group whose one of their political values is they seek for Israel to not exist anymore.
Oh, it's more of a movement. It's the BDS movement, the boycott, devote, and
yes.
Oh, what's the word? I wrote it down.
Yes.
Boycott.
And one of these political movements stated
divestment and sanction. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions.
One of their stated missions, like part of their, not their missions, but one of their stated goals is for Israel to not exist anymore, right? Which either means the death of millions of Jews, which we already know has happened before, right? Or for them to be all expelled from where they live now, which that is anti-Semitic. To support something like that would be supporting something that is anti-Semitic, right?
Yes.
So it is not directly anti-Semitic, but certainly by only one degree of separation is it directly anti-Semitic, And it's that's weird. Like, that's just like giving money to the KKK. Just like people said that Jeff Sessions did. Like, he's not in the KKK, but he's got a homeboy who's in the KKK.
Yep.
That's the same fucking thing. That's the exact same thing. And it is crazy to me that it's not being looked at that way, And one of the things that I have here is fucking my notes here. Is the Democratic, I hate the term whataboutism, right? But the Democratic, like, whataboutism and comparing Ilhan Omar to Steve King, right?
Yes.
Like, that's, like, those are the same thing. And if you are going to demand that Steve King committee assignments are taken away from him and all assignments are taken away from him, then the same thing should happen to Ilhan Omar.
Yes.
That is 100% hypocritical to be like, no, we don't need to take anything from her. She doesn't need to be punished. For Elliot Engel, a Jewish member of the House, to be like, well, I don't agree and she should apologize, but she should still sit on the committee.
The leader of her committee.
Because he knows and everyone else knows, because maybe, and I'm just postulating here, right? That Nancy Pelosi is like, yo, she helped get me here. You can't say shit. Like, I have to stay here. I made a promise to her that she gets to be on the Foreign Relations Committee. She needs to be on the Foreign Relations Committee, know? Because that if she's going to be there, Elliot Engel has to sign on for it.
Yeah.
He's part of the leadership, They've already had this discussion. So I don't understand it.
This is the really exciting part for me, because when you bring up Nancy Pelosi, right?
Yeah.
And her involvement, because I had mentioned earlier that meeting that AOC had with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, about all the things they demanded happen in the party on that House or the congressional level, and Nancy gave in.
It is almost
Nancy does not have. She has lost control of the party. She does not have control of her party anymore.
So I don't.
And I think when we talk, I'm going to say that now, before we start talking about how the development of this resolution evolved and changed.
Okay.
And I will point out every now and again, as we just kind of talk about the stage, this is where she lost power. This is where she lost power.
Because I've heard that argument this week, and I think I could maybe understand it for Nancy Pelosi in part, right? But like Ben Shapiro, and I heard someone else make the argument this week that the more establishment Democrats, right? Dianne Feinstein and people like that in the Senate and Nancy Pelosi in the House have lost control of the Democratic Party and it is now in control of the new progressive wing of the party, right? Because that's an argument that is being made and I don't agree with that, right? I don't think that's the case. So I'm will get to that. I'm thinking
the Democratic ideology, she has lost control of its direction.
And I don't know that that's the case.
Sweet. I can't wait to do that.
So
curious.
So I would love to, because
I would love for you to change my mind, by the way, because the thought of that happening freaks me the fuck out on a level I can't even comprehend.
No, you're good. So we'll talk about it. You know, I don't know that I'll change your mind, but I think I might make you feel a little more comfortable. You know,
I hope so.
So
I want to sleep at night, man.
So when all these things happened, and the Democrats said that they would not strip Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar of her. I'm glad we're not more famous because that would be fucking terrible.
This would be a week-long tweet apology.
Yeah.
Our numbers would drop 30% for 3 weeks.
When the Democratic leadership said they would not strip Ilhan Omar of her committee assignments, they decided that the Republicans demanded a resolution be passed to
call her out,
to call her out, to name her and say that that's not cool and that anti-Semitism is not cool. And we don't do that here. Right.
Just like they did for Steve King.
And enough people in the Democratic Party got upset about it that you have a timeline. So give me so give me that.
So yeah, they demanded that. Right. And that's what started this whole train. Well, so the first draft of it was HR, which is House Resolution, by the way, HR 183, and it was denouncing anti-Semitic speech. But it started off with Nancy Pelosi. She demanded that they not include her name like they did in HR 40, with Steve King, because they called out Steve King, I think, about a dozen times in about a 2-page, resolution. And that's what the Republicans wanted. And that was the first thing that she did, was say, no, we're not going to do that. And then they took that forward. And then the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional Progressive Caucus said they didn't like the resolution because they wanted it. They said it was suggestive of only what Omar said and not just as anti-Semitic speech in general.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what was their deal. So they ended up pulling her name. And then, hang on here. I forget how I had my notes lined up in this order here. And I should preface to say, the person that called this out was on CNN. It was Chris Cuomo who actually called out the shit show that this bill went through. But anyways, and going back, and then people wanted to add in they wanted to add in the fact that it shouldn't just be anti-Semitism. I mean, what about
too?
Yeah, we need racism. What about Islamophobia? What about all the intersectional boxes? We need to check these things.
Yeah.
And I think ended up in the actual statement, the word Jewish hate or something like that came about 7th in line. In all these things,
even though that's the whole point of this whole thing, that's why this whole thing started, was because a member of the Democratic Party, who is now one of the freshman members of the House Foreign Relations Committee, said something anti-Semitic and supports a group that is in favor of, I don't want to say the destruction of Israel because that's really extreme, but Israel not existing anymore.
The destruction of the Jewish
state of
Israel. Yeah. Yes. I mean, you're not wrong. It started as Ilhan Omar being saying something anti-Semitic, and they wanted to call her out for it. Yep. And then it turned into a vote against bigotry, and hate in all its forms.
Yeah.
Which resulted in 24 Republicans voting against it. And this was something I was really surprised to hear Chris Cuomo call this out. He said the fact that a group of Republicans feel so strongly about this that it is such a political piece of travesty, like garbage, that they're not going to vote for a open declaration of a denunciation of hate. Says something about how screwed up the politics are, how bad the partisanship is. He doesn't blame them for not voting for it because it is a disgusting piece of trash. The fact that you turned what was supposed to be a calling out of somebody in the House of Representatives at the level of the federal government for saying something openly anti-Semitic, and who has had a number of anti-Semitic statements in the past, which are easily called out. I mean, I watched probably a half a dozen of them yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's insane. Just Google it. You'll find it. But you can't even call her out by name and denounce what she said.
Well, and again, even by the argument of as you would say, the intersectional left, right? As white non-Jewish males, it's not up to us to decide if it's anti-Semitic or not.
We don't get to decide anything. But
of the numerous, at least at the very minimum, the numerous Jewish members of the Democratic Party and of Congress that have come out and said that it is anti-Semitic, that in itself should be enough proof for anybody that it is anti-Semitic, that they perceived it to be that way. You know what I'm saying? So it's wild.
It is the most, and this is why I kind of think that ultimately Nancy and the leadership in general has lost control of the ideological direction of the party, because that should not have ever happened. This was an ideological bill. This was just a denunciation of anti-Semitism, but it turned into a partisan defense project.
Yeah.
In my eyes, which, I mean, it's hard to do because she lives up to her name every time she gets on television as Skeletor, because even when she's talking, she's doing this thing with her jaw and like moving her dentures around and just staring off into space. And it's troubling to watch, for one. I will say that. She's not aged well. But I'm sorry. I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just in reality, it happens.
Yeah.
You know, but it just doesn't look like it looks like a hostage video, like Megyn Kelly's apology for the blackface thing.
Stop it. Have you seen fucking Chuck Grassley? I don't even want to talk about Nancy Pelosi if we're not going to talk about Chuck Grassley. Oh, that is some partisan nonsense. So
that's okay.
There are older, nastier, fucking crusty white men in the Republican Party than anywhere else in Florida or Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Florida and Arizona?
Yeah.
Are you getting out of here, baby girl?
So, not that I love Nancy Pelosi, but I can't listen to her be slandered like that.
Okay, very well. I'll leave your girlfriend Nancy Pelosi alone. By the way, you cannot defend your new girlfriend Nancy Pelosi and not defend your old ex-girlfriend Meghan McCain. Have you heard? Did you see that thing that she got involved into?
No, what did she say?
Well, so this is like a little side spin-off. I don't know. We almost pretty much tackled that thing.
No, so I want
Passed
to talk
in the
to you.
House.
So I want to talk about Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
Right? Nancy Pelosi.
Yes.
And the Democrats as a whole, right? Because like I said, I heard this argument this week also. And I think the one big piece of evidence that I would use, right, is the Green New Deal, right?
Yes.
When all these people came out, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is like, she's out.
You got me.
She's like, I'm the boss now. If you're not going to do it, I'm the boss now because I got these fucking things. Because we'll talk about that later, right? So
and New York as Billboard says, no, we're the boss.
Nancy Pelosi said, and I applaud your whatever she said,
your gumption. Basically.
Yeah, whatever she said.
She's old enough to say gumption.
But we're not going to do that, right? And in the Senate just this week, there was video that came out of some kids that showed up at Dianne Feinstein's office.
See?
And they're talking about, you need to pass the Green New Deal. You need to do this. And she said, that's not how this works. She said, I just won a big election, but I guess you know better than I do. She's being kind of a dick, but she's being realistic. I agree with it. I think she's fine because if you are going to bring your kid down there and you are going to let them talk to a member of Congress, right, and espouse their views as a child or as 16 or as 18-year-olds or as anybody, right, you need to prepare them for the idea that there are larger things at work here than the ideals that you have when you go there.
Okay.
And people would argue that that's crushing to your children and you need to promote what they're doing. But I know for a fact that if I was to bring Dax to go and see Derek Kilmer because he did not agree with something that is going on, say, I applaud you because this is part of your duty as an American, as a child here, to be able to say what you want. But you should understand, we can have a discussion about this whole scope of everything, right? But if you don't want to talk about that, then you need to understand that there are larger things at work here than just your opinion. There are more things going on here, and politics is a bigger game than you know, right?
Yes.
And if you're not going to tell your kids that, then they're going to get fucking schooled by a senator when they go down there and they're telling her that, oh, we're the generation of blah, 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 and we're all this shit. And she's like, that's fine. But in the end of the day, in the world of politics, it is a waste of my time for me to put my name on something that I know will not pass in the Senate. It is a waste of my time, realistically. There are other things I should be doing.
My record.
And there's other things I should be doing for you. There's other shit that I should be doing other than putting my name on something when I can come out here and tell you, I think it's a great idea, but we can't pass it. So I would rather focus on something else because that's really what's going on here.
Damn you got me. Now,
that's my evidence.
I will say this. I retract my previous statement, and I will insert a new one. And that is that Nancy Pelosi has not indeed lost the control of her party because, as we know, the House of Representatives lies below the Senate.
Yeah.
And the Senate, I will say, has zero. I mean, you could, on a deep dive political insider baseball stuff, you could say there's activist senators. But for the most part, in the Senate, the most activist senator you have is probably Kamala Harris. And that's pretty passive.
And that's because
it's all just words and no legislation.
And that's because there's a broader base of people you have to appeal to if you're going to be a senator than just a person. Because I looked up the numbers, right, for her district, and there was, I think, 11,000 people that voted for Joe Crowley and 14,000 people that voted for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So there's 25,000 people who voted, like, in her district, right?
Oh, yeah. That was something
district. So
I did look up.
So
I had
she's going to
said it was a landslide victory before, and you said you didn't think so.
And so...
Yes, you were very right.
So I looked at it, and I would say it for the scale of how many votes are there, it's a large... but
relatively,
but it's only 25,000 people, you know, and that's a point that a lot of people made. But if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is to try and run for Senate, she's going to have to appeal to half of the state, and that's going to be for not even half the state, the whole state, because it's, you just pick two senators, like they don't represent halves of the state.
Yeah. Right? I wonder what the numbers game is for New York City and upstate.
And that's what you'll have to compete with is people who live there that are Democrats because they're, socially liberal, or socially progressive, whatever. But they have a fuckload of money. And she's talking about taking 70% of anything over 10 million. There's people in New York that are like, you can suck my dick. Like, I'm absolutely not. I know. I make all these TV shows. I'm a producer for 30 TV shows on ABC. You can hold my dick if you're taking 70% of my money after $10 million.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to have a hard time carrying those ideals into the Senate. She will.
Which is why I say Nancy Pelosi has lost control of the House.
And that's what I said. I would, that is what I would definitely give way to is that there are people in the House that are taken away from that. The Democratic Party as a whole has certainly shifted to the left. There's no question about that at all.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I think as a whole, the Democratic Party is indeed shifting.
Yeah.
But we're seeing the activists take over the House side of the Democratic Party in a insanely dangerously fast way.
We just need...
You think about it. How long have they been in office?
Just a couple months.
Yeah, right. They've been in since the beginning of this year.
January,
right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what next year is? Their re-election.
Yeah.
Freshman Congress, 2-year in. Yeah. This is them making a whole lot of noise. Are they going to continue doing this with resolutions and bills and legislation, or are they just going to shift over to the more ideological talking points of what they're going to do next year in 2020 after they get reelected? I'm curious to see that. But
I think because there are definitely members of the Democratic Party that are leaning away from that, that are separating themselves from those ideals, and they're much quieter. But I think that in time, because I very much believe that this ultra progressive movement in the Democratic Party is just a small blip, just a wave on the radar, or just a wave. You know?
I
think
hope
that
you're right.
it's just it's like like a bell curve or whatever the fuck they call it, you know, like
a bell curve.
It's just up here at one point, you know, it's going to come back down. So I think that in 2-4 years, there is going to be another group of much more moderate Democrats that come into office that are like, we
to sweep out the
they're like,
activists,
we do
so?
not believe in that. Like we believe in, like I said, social liberalism and, you know, medium-sized government to, like, you know, make sure that everybody's taken care of and to, like, do all this type of shit. But we don't want to give everybody everything because we think people need to learn, you know, because if you think, if I were to be 10 years older and run for representative, like, I'm going to run as a Democrat, you know, but I'm going to run as an incredibly moderate, classically liberal Democrat. Like, that's where I'm going to run at, you know?
Yeah.
Because you can't win as an independent, but I can certainly run as a Democrat that's like, I'm trying to get away from
You can't win as an independent.
or as a liberal.
Doesn't that say
libertarian.
something, you know, fundamentally wrong about...
It's weird.
Yeah. I'm trying to find this Meghan McCain tweet.
Oh, you're good.
You've officially changed my immediate outlook on the future of the party and the future of the government as a whole.
I'm not saying it's not possible,
but yeah, the fact that the Senate hasn't gone full bore psycho, makes me feel, you know, halfway decent about life. And I'm trying to find this one. I might just have to show you on my phone here.
Yeah, no, you're good.
And you can only see half of it. Oh, wait a minute. Keep talking for a second.
Yeah.
I think I actually saved it, or I liked it as a tweet.
Perfect.
So I have to remember how to do that.
Yeah, no, you're good. So we are sitting at, it's 2:30 right now. So I'm thinking that we should talk about Zeke's topics, and then we'll talk about Joe Rogan next week.
Definitely.
Because I really want to talk about that because
we're running out of time.
Yeah, and because I think we'll end up on a little bit different sides of the spectrum on that because you're way more tapped in internet-wise and stuff than I am. And so I think that we'll be on not totally different ends, but on kind of separate spots. So I really want to talk about that.
Interesting.
But I would like to...
Do you think I'm more Tim Pool or...
I don't think that you're totally Tim Pool because he's definitely a douche. And
I'm just wondering what side of the argument do you think
I think
I'm
you're
on?
more Tim Pool, than Jack Dorsey.
I
haven't
landed on anything there yet because it is very confusing.
I'm also not like very Jack Dorsey, you know, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think we'll be on totally opposite ends of the spectrum, but I think that, like, you're just deeper into internet culture and shit than I am. So I think that,
which is weird because when it comes to social media, I'm not.
Yeah.
But the inner workings of the political ideological battles and the culture war
that's
something
that you're way more tapped into than I am. Yeah.
I am a culture warrior.
So I want to talk about some topics that Zeke came at me with last week, right? Mm-hmm. Because he hit me up last week and was like, I just want to talk about like really big things and, you know, let me send you so much and like all the whatever. So, the first thing he asked me about was sustainability, right?
Sustainability.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And so this is anybody who knows Zeke, this is not to like make it seem like he's crazy. This is like just a totally abstract, objective conversation that you and I have had before in like smaller terms, but now I really am going to get your feel for it because Zeke made me talk about it, right?
I like this because this is me get to think out loud time.
Yeah. So he's talking about the sustainability of like humans on the planet,
like human civilization and
on the planet
as a whole.
I like this one.
Zeke, you're the fucking
as
man.
Like the environment and like all this shit, right? And so he's like, a lot of our planet's problems have come from us. As responsible as we try to be and try to fix things, we end up with a lot of unintended consequences. When we raise one problem, to others, or when we fix one problem, two others will arise, right? So he said the common denominator is us. And so his question is it crazy to think that if there's less people on the planet, then we would have like a better area, you know, like we wouldn't have this problem with sustainability. So
you know my thoughts on the Thanos solution.
That is what we have referenced it as before, right? Yeah. And
because no, I don't disagree. I mean, the problem, most of the problems we have, you know, environmentally, we'll just say, or because there's just too many fucking people and we don't know how to deal with it yet.
Yeah.
So is there any more though, or was that?
He just gave examples. California's going to have water. Like we wouldn't have to use oil and gas as much. It would be easier to convert to green energies. We wouldn't have to use GMOs as much, and diseases would go down, property and famine and all that stuff. Like it would be easier if there's less people.
Yeah.
It's just easier to get things done.
Yeah.
Which I totally agree with. In theory, if there's less people on the planet, then that's how it is. And I told Zeke that I personally think from a simply evolutionary standpoint, right? The earth has designed things such as crops and shit like that to take so long to grow so as to limit the people on the planet. You only got so much room I think the planet as
you can outdo yourself. You can have too many people, not enough food.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
This is a basic, strategy gamers, conundrum is
so
you want the biggest army in the world, but you also need to be able to feed that army.
So I think that the planet as a living being, right?
Entity.
Because we know that the planet is alive, at least the things on it are alive, right?
It is made up of living matter.
So,
it is a living, breathing ecosystem.
So I truly believe that from an evolutionary standpoint, right? Somewhere along the way, the earth has perfected itself to a point that crops take the time that they do, the gestation period that they do,
their natural cycle,
the growth period, right, is as long as it is to limit the human and animal population to a point that it can be sustained on the planet. You only have so much land on the planet that you can actually grow shit on. A lot of places are too hot, too cold, too whatever. There's only certain places that you can really grow shit, right? So it's limited to that because this is the amount of people that can live here effectively, and the planet will still be able to recycle all the gases and everything, works out in the way that it's supposed to. Everything gets recycled. Humans have evolved to a point that's past that, where we, can genetically modify food. And that's why we have fucked it to the point that we put extra gases in the atmosphere and have done all the stuff that we have done that have put us in this place.
Well, just think land development. I mean, it's everything that civilization is.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, you dropping the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you think about it. The reason we are where we're at today is because we have made certain technological advances that have put us where we are. It's allowed us to outgrow. This is why we don't all live next to a water source.
Yeah.
Because we know how to drill wells now.
Yeah.
Technology has grown, but I think where I land on that anyways, like on sustainability, what does it say? Is I think societally, we are at a changing point. We're at a point now, we were going from, you're talking on a millions year scale, right?
Yeah.
Hunter and gatherers, that's about as sustainable as you can get with primitive technology, right? It's pretty sustainable. There's a lot more wildlife than there are people. But as people grow and the population grows, we outgrow that, which is why we have, places like Silicon Valley, where there is, half of Arizona. There is no way that without modern technology, people could survive in that climate.
Yeah.
At least that population.
Right.
There's certain populations in history that have just
would be
desert
go.
goers and, crazy, awesome survivalist type of cultures. But on the whole, that's not sustainable because now you have to sacrifice other places to grow crops to feed that place because not everybody can have a self-sustaining garden in the back and animals and whatever. So ultimately where that leads is this is a transitional period in which our species is having to technologically develop their way out of relying on traditionally biological elements for survival.
And you feel confident that will happen, that we will adapt to having this many people on the planet?
I will say that I don't know, but we're either going to make it or not. It's either going to be a mass extinction experience or we're going to find the light at the end of the tunnel and somehow find a way out. And I think people like Elon Musk are trying to do that.
So that is actually like a way brighter perspective than either Zeke or I thought of. So I'm really happy that you said that, and I'm excited for him to read
I
this,
have faith
or to hear
in
this because,
Elon Musk to save the world. All right. No,
That
I mean,
makes
you just
no-
think about it.
No, that's good.
Looking at, it's hard to look in history for this,
Yeah.
because historically we've been pretty fucking bad at, making it work as is. We've had to change our environment more than any species on the face of the planet in order to thrive and survive.
Yeah.
Right. We have had to do that. I think the closest animal to us that affects its environment as much as we do is, I think, the beaver. Yeah. Beavers,
That's really interesting.
Beavers dam up rivers, and
Right.
they affect their entire ecosystem because they drop forestry and all this stuff. It's a huge amount, but
Yeah.
compared to us, exponentially farther down the line. But
So
beavers are the next sentient being, by the way. Either that or dolphins. But anyways, not to delegitimize my argument by saying something crazy. But I think if you look at history, we have historically gotten better and better and better. And exponentially, those improvements on inventions and ways of doing things have gotten faster. We're in an exponential technology period, which is why you are holding a smartphone right now. And how many years ago was it that you had a Nokia, phone or a flip phone, for God's sakes? I mean, now you have the combined knowledge of digital, the combined human digital knowledge accessible on your phone from basically anywhere on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a huge exponential leap in human development.
So what you're saying,
we're going to be okay.
Okay.
That trend in technological advancement makes me feel like we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Because we both ended on...
We may not see that, by the way.
Well, so
Hopefully.
we ended on, at least when we moved to another conversation, right? That he's like, well, like, what if you just have people, you just limit the amount of people kids that people can have, and if they want more kids, they just have to adopt children from whatever, and I'm like, that's fine, but that doesn't limit the amount of people that are on the planet, because people are still being added. At this point, there's still too many. So the only way to do that, you got to kill people,
Well,
and there's
like
no
AOC.
way.
AOC says we shouldn't be having any more kids because it's bad.
And there's no way to fairly decide. And I told him, I said, I feel confident that there's X amount of people on the planet that if someone does somehow convince the planet that this is what we got to do, right?
We all got to go China.
There's going to be X amount of people that are like, you all go right now. Like you could kill me right now. Put us all in a rocket, just ship us out there and it'll be cool. There's X amount of people that will volunteer to do that either because they don't want to live anymore or they are willing to just sacrifice themselves for the planet.
They're going to go colonize Mars. Don't worry about it.
There's enough people that would do that, right?
Yes.
But not enough that would make a difference.
Weird
right?
to think about.
I know. I just mean not even enough. There's a section of people that would do that. That's not enough people. After that, you gotta decide who else is gonna go, and there's no way to fairly do that. Like, you can't. And
unless you do the Thanos,
so
takeover, which results in half the population being murdered.
It's like, but you don't think that, you could convince people that it's for like the greater good. No. That's
about as dystopian as you can get,
that is why.
Man.
Every single sci-fi movie is about people on a spaceship abandoning Earth because it's too late. Because we
gotta
fucked
go.
it up. Yeah. We fucked it up. It's too late. We have to leave. That's why they're leaving. And I said, and that's shitty, but that is totally representative of how people are as a race. Like,
dude, do you know how many short stories I've written that refer to the Earth that used to be,
we'll only
or
work
the
so
great
far.
legend of the Earth that was?
We'll only work so hard. And so then the next thing that he asked me about was prisoner labor.
Yes.
Which again, I told you, he thought that I was going to totally disagree with both of these things. And I'm like, first of all, I smoke weed all the time. Like, I definitely think there's too many people on the planet. There's no question about that. Like, there's no question. Like, but you can't just go around killing people.
No. And
you can't be purging people. Like, it doesn't work. You know, it's not feasible.
You can recognize an obvious problem we have.
but
that's very difficult to address, but there is, it's a problem. And either we need to technologically help ourselves get out.
Right.
Either that or, you know, we're just fucked.
And then he asked me about prisoner labor, and that's not something I've really like thought about before, you know. I said, but I said off the bat, I'm not opposed to people who want to work and do shit. You know, I don't care because they do that now. But if you want to do something that's better for the country as a whole, then I don't have any problem with doing that. You know, I said, I don't know exactly how I feel about forcing labor, you know, because I think that kind of borders on slavery a little bit.
Like fighting California wildfires for 2 cents an hour or whatever it was.
But those people volunteer, you know, like those people, like they volunteer to do that. And it's for fucking dick money, but they're prisoners and they volunteer to do it. Like no one has to do it, you know? So that's where I'm like, that's not forced labor because you chose to do that. Like you're offering to do it and you know it's for 2 cents an hour because you're a fucking prisoner, you know? So I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with you're in prison, so you have to do this, right? That's what I have a problem with because you're in prison, you can fucking sit in your cell all day. From what I understand, for the most part, you know, not everywhere because every prison is different, especially privately owned ones, you know, they have different policies. But for the most part, if you don't want to have a job, you don't have to have a job. You know, you have to apply for a job in most prisons to get one so that you can earn money towards commissary and stuff like that. So I would be off top opposed to being told that you have to work because you are in prison, right? Because that to me borders a little on sort of slavery or at least indentured servitude, right? At the very least, right? And so then I said, at that point, you start to have to get into a debate about like prisoner rights and what rights do prisoners have, because there's a whole swath of people that say, well, fuck them because they're in prison anyway. They're fucking rapers and murderers and who gives a shit, you know? But there's all kinds of people in prison who aren't rapers and murderers and, you know,
a shit ton of them.
Right. And so you can't force them to do something that they don't want because even though they're a prisoner and they made a mistake, they still have rights as a human being, which is why people have problems with Guantanamo Bay and you can't just do whatever the fuck you want. That's why we have black sites to do nasty shit, you know, because as the Geneva Convention, whatever. You can do whatever you want, you know?
Let's find a way around that pesky Geneva
Convention. I think that it's interesting. And he's talking about the only line I draw is that the inmate is mentally or physically incapable. He's for the sake of argument, right, is what he said. This is shit that, you know,
kind of forced labor.
All of this stuff I think is just ideas that he tosses around, but is by himself and like doesn't have a whole lot of people to. I don't know that. I'm not saying he doesn't have any friends. I'm just saying, even if you have a bunch of friends, you might not be able to discuss this type of shit with them. You know, I go to therapy for a reason. There's some stuff that I don't even want to talk to you about. I would rather discuss it with somebody who's only going to tell their husband about it when they go home, and I don't give a fuck, you know? So.
Yeah, definitely don't come to me. I can't help you, bro. I got bad advice.
He said the only line I draw is if the inmate is mentally or physically incapable of doing so and if they are susceptible to violence. As long as the work hours are reasonable, 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, I don't think that's a terrible thing. Inmates could, in theory, do the jobs that most Americans don't want to do. Digging ditches, picking crops, fighting fires, paving roads, doing shit like that. Think about your produce from the grocery shopping could be extremely cheap. You wouldn't have to raise state taxes to pay for revamping the infrastructure, like paving roads, and then all the money that you would save just in general from the labor. Which, again, I don't think are terrible things, you know, but you gotta establish that. And that's overhaul of like, you know, the penal system and all that. What am I trying to think of?
I will tell you exactly what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And this is because this is my view on prison labor.
Oh, yeah.
So my view on prison labor is that you cannot have a righteous discussion about prison labor without talking about a complete and utter prison system reform, an entire, you know, justice system reform. Because our justice system right now, our penal system as it is right now.
Yes.
And this is not always the case, but in the vast majority of times, people that go to prison for nonviolent crimes or whatever it is often are influenced by the incredibly terrible environment that our prison system is, and they come out worse off than they went in.
Correct.
Our prison system is a complete and utter failure.
Correct.
So, that being said,
sucks.
I am 110% behind prison labor. And I will tell you why. Because in my ideal prison system,
I'm so glad that I asked you about these two
right?
things.
This
today.
is something because it pisses me off.
Well, I'm
no
happy.
end.
I'm happy because I feel like I got the sense that he felt like he was alone in having these thoughts. You know?
Okay.
And so I'm happy that you also have feelings
this
about
does
this
not
because
come, and I think it's important to state, this does not come from a place of like malice. Fuck them, they broke the law, they need to work.
no, I know
No.
hella people been locked up.
This
Hella
is
people been locked
this is
up.
coming from a place that our prison system, by necessity,
Yeah.
for any non-violent crime, and including the fact that the definition of violent crime needs to change to an actual violent act,
Right.
right? This is, because a drug offense where a guy has a gun on him, that is not a violent offense.
Oh, yeah.
That
that's
is
bullshit.
disgusting. That is a completely separate issue.
Just packing heat. That's all.
Exactly. But anyways, so nonviolent crimes should obviously be more focused on rehabilitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is obviously a punishment aspect because you become a ward of the state and are now responsible. Your responsible charge is to the government versus, somebody that commits a violent crime. It needs to be more on the punishment scale because that is obviously something that we're saying, that it's more severe. White collar crimes, yes, can have equally devastating effects. But at the end of the day, if they're socially, I got to move your phone because it's making the internet or the electronics talk. But the violent criminal is a much different case than a non-violent criminal in most cases. So for one, we need to take a look at mental health, I will say. So, as part of prison, like mandatory therapy needs to be had. And not like psychotherapy, give you drugs, but you just need to be able to go talk to people that are qualified enough to help kind of get you on the right path to mentally be in the right way.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
There you go. And if through that process, a continuous process that goes throughout your entire thing, it's not like a 30-day, this is your therapy intake. No, it's a full-born, whole process thing follows you from the day you get in to the day you get out. They at any point can say, hey, this person is still a danger to society. I mean, this person has mental issues. We need to ship them off to a different tract. This is hardcore. We need to do something else. Or this is a savable case. We're fine. But not even that direct. That sounds like one person making a call whether you have a shot or not.
Oh, shit.
It's not quite that, severe what I'm talking about here. But,
Bitch.
essentially, you need to be your mandatory labor is filling a job out in the environment, the work environment that the normal federal government does on a daily basis. We have all sorts of social workers, office workers. I mean, the bureaucracy is huge and expansive. You can put people in jobs they can be qualified to do. It is very, very simple. You do have to pay them a wage.
Yeah.
We already have, whether you agree with the minimum wage or not, it's a separate argument. You can pay them the minimum wage, an actual state, federal minimum wage, and then, put them in these jobs, with trained people that are on the civilian side that work with these type of people that bring them into the job market.
What do you mean these type of people?
These people. Just regular, you need to be certified to be able to work with a prisoner.
Reintegrate people back into society.
Yes, because you need to just keep them
criminals.
out in society and productive, and you need to make, if they don't have any experience, there's a million jobs out there that there's a demand for that you can be trained for that
Unskilled
the government,
labor.
Unskilled labor is huge for one. And I mean, there's a massive amount of demand in that
and
territory.
unskilled labor, just so that everyone knows, right? Just to be clear, unskilled labor is things that you can be trained on the job to do, like things you don't need as any type of special certificate to be, like an electrician or something. That's not unskilled labor. That is skilled labor. You have to have experience. You have to know what you're doing, to be like a general contractor or something like that. Like you have to have certifications and shit like that. Like you have to, you can't just be a guy who builds shit in his garage.
But in all trades, there's a position called a laborer.
Yes.
Essentially, or they some come on, but essentially
a gopher.
It is an apprentice position where anybody without any skills at all can walk into that job and within a certain amount of time be trained enough within that trade to be able to take over that next position.
Yeah.
Right? You can build yourself up through the trades. Whereas there's a massive hole in trades. That's one place you could focus. But I mean, even just everywhere in the bureaucracy that you can train people to do these jobs, it'll keep them active. It'll make them productive. And there's none of this sitting around,
stewing about society,
staying inside this, this quagmire of hate and resentment and all the crap that is our prison system right now.
The revolving door of
removes
prison.
It removes that bad cancerous part of it.
I guess.
So you go back and you spend the night there. You do all the normal things. You are still under lock and key. But at the end of the day, if your punishment for fucking up and, I don't know, white collar crime, you may spend the rest of your life a ward of the state. That won't change. But you still are forced to go out there and be productive in society and do things that need to happen. And it keeps you out of trouble. It keeps you from getting worse. And it benefits society as whole. You're not just, there are some people that will go and sit in a cage and deal in the darkest corners and the recesses of society because they are a lost cause. Serial killers, stuff like that. Like, there's no rehabilitating you. You need to go, and we could talk about what to do with them on a separate page. But that's why at the end of the conversation, in a perfect world, I am for 100% prison labor, but the entire prison system needs to change. As is right now, prison labor is essentially indentured servitude.
Yeah.
And whether you volunteer for it or not, it doesn't matter because the private prison system thing needs to go away. And I understand that the reason the private prison system exists because the government is even shittier at running the prison system.
Well, let's talk about how the reform works on another podcast.
Okay. Word. Sorry.
No.
But anyways, yes. So 100% prison labor as long as it's successful.
Because that's a big conversation. To talk about the reformation of the prison system is a big conversation.
Indeed. As far as it's concerned right now, prison labor is indentured servitude, and I am not on board with it.
You think prison labor of any kind is indentured servitude?
Unless you pay them and I don't want to say living wage, but the state has no authority to make you be productive, to force you to do anything. I mean, it's a violation of human rights. Yes, I understand that you need to be punished, but in that case, throw me in a cage, lock away, lock the key away for 20 years.
I don't think most places it's forced. Like, I don't think you can do that, and that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about
as long as it's not forced.
I'm talking about people who volunteer for jobs, even if it's for 2 cents an hour or whatever. Like, those people are volunteering for those jobs, applying for those jobs.
So strictly on a volunteer basis, that is totally fine.
And
you can pay them pennies on the dollar, but. I mean, that's fucked up, but at the end of the day, you signed up for it. It's a free world. I know you're locked up, but you can make stupid decisions as much as the next guy.
As far as I know, and that's something that I can certainly look up before next week, the vast majority, if not all jobs in prisons that are done by inmates are on a volunteer basis. As far as I know.
Okay. And as long as that's the case, I'm down, whatever.
Because I believe that you are correct. I believe that being forced to do labor would be under the guise of indentured servitude, and I don't think that that is the case. I am sure that there are some undocumented cases of that. I'm not saying that never ever happens, because I am sure that, again, if we were more famous, someone would come out and say, my fucking cousin, was in prison and this happened and, they forced him to do this.
You're on a work deal today, so you got to go out and make big rocks and little rocks.
On a broad basis, I am fairly certain that the jobs that people have within prisons staffed by inmates are on a volunteer basis.
Okay, so off of that basis, I don't think you should. It's tough. Should you pay them?
That's so interesting.
I think that if it is a private prison system, you have the opportunity to pay them whatever you want.
Yeah, that's fucked up in itself, the private prison thing. That's a whole other conversation.
But if it is a private prison, you have the right to pay them whatever you feel is responsible.
But if it's a state
or federal prison, there is no pay involved, and it is 100% on a volunteer basis.
But I think it is. I think there is pay involved. But you don't think there should be, is what you're saying. You don't think if it's done by the state or the...
No, because I don't think I want to pay you.
Even like 2 cents or whatever.
Yeah, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay you a cent. And not the fact that I don't want to pay you. It's just what you're doing is not beneficial, I don't think, to the end result that I want the prison system to do.
I think some of it is
it's just busy work. Too. It's a way for you to get out and about. You're not locked in prison. It's all that stuff for whatever reason, but if it's not benefiting your end goal to being a more rehabilitated person in society, then I don't want to pay for that, because it's fundamentally wrong. You shouldn't be doing it unless you just want to go out and just not be there. That's fine. And then that is on you to make that decision, but we're not going to pay you for it. I will pay you for things that go towards your end result of being a better, more productive person in society, being a regular functioning member of society, rehabilitating you into something that you're not going to fuck up anymore.
Well, and I think that part of the argument for, for inmates doing jobs in prisons is that some of them, you certainly could argue, have never had a job before, whatever proportion of them have. So doing something, anything of any type of value in the prison, even if it only benefits the prison, is teaching them some skill, even if it is just working, doing something you don't really give a fuck about for 8 hours, because chances are
showing up on time.
Chances are when they get out of prison, the first job they get is not going to be a great one. It's going to be a shitty one, and they're not going to love it, and they're going to have to show up on time. They're going to have to work for 6, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, and then go home and then come back the next day and do the same thing. I think that's part of the argument is that that's like that in itself. And I think in some cases you also, if not pay, I think you can also work, like it works towards time off, that you can earn time off of your sentence for that. I can't attest to that. I'm definitely going to look that up this week now, because I'm interested. I used to watch fucking Lock Up all the time. I should know this shit.
I feel like that's probably the case, because you could probably try to justify it in the fact that by you going out and do that, you're proving to the prison system and to the state that you are a productive member of society. And so you go back out.
I know for a fact a lot of places you get cents, that just gets put on your books at the commissary, and you can buy cookies, fucking whatever.
Yeah, I've been working at the library for 12 years. I've got that place in shape. I'm organized.
So that's really interesting. That is very interesting. I did not know that. I love when we don't.
Surprise.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect. So there you go, Zeke.
We're not an old married couple yet.
Yeah.
Going.
So there you go, Zeke. That's what we have as far as that.
I think we should take a break.
You think so? You have to go pee.
Because I got to pee so bad.
All right. Man. All right. Let's do it. We'll be back, and we'll hit some sports and
pop culture, baby.
Yeah, a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of sports, and we'll get the fuck out of here.
Peace.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, because that's what's that? Let's get ready.
Oh, okay. I've peed. We're much better now. We could talk about whatever we want to talk about now.
Yeah, pop culture. So, like I said earlier, I watched like some old ass Twilight Zones. Have you ever watched the old Twilight Zone?
I have never watched the old Twilight Zone.
It's on Netflix. You should peep it.
I know it. Yeah, I do.
I only watched a couple episodes, so I don't really have that much to say about it. I watched Jeffrey Dahmer. It's a movie. It has Jeremy Renner. He plays Jeffrey Dahmer. It was really weird. It was really, really weird. It was from like one of his early movies, I think. I watched the first and second Terminators because those
The first and
movies are
second?
fucking, because those ones are rad.
So good.
T2 is... Do you think T2 is better than T1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Miles
It's just a
better.
more fun movie for me.
Yeah.
You know, the first one is like super, super good and it makes you think. But I mean, once it became a franchise,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, T2 takes it all the way.
And the T1000, the liquid robot.
Dude.
Jordan and I were watching it and she didn't understand like the liquid robot. I was like, okay, well, it's like the late 80s, so like don't worry about it. Like, don't question it. First of all, like
Conglomeration of nanobots.
you
That's
should
what that
know
is.
better by now. And then she's like, but how does he like change clothes and stuff like that? And I'm like, it's liquid robot. Like that's how he changes clothes. I don't know what to tell you. But then, yeah, when I was at work, I was like, oh, it is. It's the same. It's Tony Stark nanotechnology just way before that
Definitely.
happened. Like that's exactly what it is. So that's what we'll have to tell her.
Tony Stark's amazing.
And it's just such a sick turn that like the Arnold Schwarzenegger is a good guy in the second one instead of a bad guy, you know?
Yeah.
'Cause you got no fucking idea and Jordan had never seen the first one and I had watched like the first 5 minutes of the second one before we started it when she was there and before I started when she was there. And so I had to explain to her, I was like, oh, well, he used to be a bad guy. Now he's a good guy and all this happened, blah, blah, blah. It was really funny.
It's a stark difference between the first one and the second one. Isn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's a stark difference. I don't know why, but you talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but have you ever seen True Lies?
No, but is that the one that has Jamie Lee Curtis in it?
Yep.
Okay, so I know, so I've seen parts of that movie, but
Oh my God.
not as an adult.
Okay. You need to watch that movie. It is one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies of all time.
It's gold.
It is pure fucking gold. The ending, you're just like, oh,
The Governor, dude.
it's so perfect.
Yeah.
I fucking love those movies.
I also watched a movie called Wind River, that has Jeremy Renner in it. Do you know who Jeremy Renner is? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Arrow.
Yeah,
The-
Hawkeye
Hawkeye, there you
in
go.
the Avengers. Yeah,
Which
so-
is probably his worst role because he's better. He's great in every movie he does.
So in this movie was fantastic, and you would love it. And it's on Netflix, so you need to be watching it. And he plays a wildlife ranger, right?
Ooh.
In Wyoming is where they're at, and he works in like a huge district, you know, and part of it is on an Indian reservation. And so he's working on finding the start plot, you know, is that he's working on hunting some mountain lions for the Indian reservation. And then there's like, he's out there and he finds a dead body. And so they have to call the federal agents. And so an FBI agent comes out, and the FBI agent is the Scarlet Witch from the Avengers. So they work together again, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. Do you know
What's her name?
she is something Olsen? She's one of the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. She's one of their sisters, whatever her name is.
Yeah, she's the non-twin Olsen sister.
Yes,
That's
which
right.
I didn't know for a long time. Jordan told me that. But yeah, she's an Olsen sister. And so she's the FBI agent in that movie. And it's fucking really good. There's all kinds of gunfights. There's drugs. It's great. There's in the description, and this is callous, and I hope that everyone understands. In the description of the movie, it's like saying that it's R-rated for, you know, violence and this, and it says a rape, which I thought was really funny for some reason, that it doesn't just say for rape, but it says a rape. Like specifically,
Singular.
just so you know, there's only one. Like just don't, you know, like it makes a difference if there's one rape scene or two, you know, but I guess it could be a difference between 1 and 10, you know, which would make a difference. I thought it was interesting. I've never seen that before, that it says a rape. You know?
A rape.
So, which it was definitely a graphic rape scene. It was not like,
It's one of those where
you know.
the point of the scene is to point out that
is
this
to make
is happening.
is to make you uncomfortable with what has happened.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fucking great movie. Like John Bernthal, who played, did you watch like the early seasons of The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
He played Shane.
Oh,
So
Shane.
that guy, he was also in, The Pacific.
Yes,
he was in
he
that.
was
So,
in the Pacific.
Yeah, so he has a small role in that.
He was something else. Oh God, he was in something else too.
The Punisher.
He's the Punisher. Yeah. Damn, I'm gonna have to look it up real quick because
So
there's another
that
show or
movie-
movie. He
that
was
movie
like
you should
fucking
watch.
awesome.
Wind River was fantastic.
Wind River.
Yeah, it was great. And then today we watched some Hot Ones before I left, and we watched Vanessa Hudgens Hot Ones, Tenacious D Hot Ones, which was great, and then also Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay was a great one. That was fantastic. Hot Ones is a great show. And then I told you I've been playing Lord of the Rings, Twin Towers on GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
It's because Jordan's had the GameCube since GameCube was relevant. And it was sitting like right next to our old TV stand. Like I said, when I put up the new TV stand, or when I brought it in, I set it up and I played fucking Melee for a little bit. It was like, yeah, this is kind of cool, whatever. And then I started playing Lord of the Rings, and I was getting my ass beat. And I was like, this game is fucking from 2002, man. Like, why is it so hard?
Because games back then were harder.
Hella hard, dude.
They were
Hella
so
hard,
much harder.
And I had that game on PlayStation 2. I remember playing it before. But it is extremely difficult. And I realized it looked better on the TV I had then than it does on the TV I have now. Like,
really?
On the TV I have now, I'm like, I just realized how shitty it looks, But I remember when I had a decent TV before, and I was playing it on my PlayStation 2. I'm like, this fucking looks so good.
So
like, this
good.
looks great. And maybe it's just because I remember it more vividly at the time, but I really felt like it looked better on. Maybe it's because my TV is so big,
Yeah, because the
it's
graphics
not made for a.
Yeah, because the poor resolution, we'll say, of an old TV.
Oh, it's shit. Yeah,
lended itself to like playing Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And
there's
now
like,
you put it on, you're like, wow, that's.
There's splices of the movie in there, like little cutscenes and stuff, and for some reason it starts in shit that happens in the first Lord of the Rings, like that I don't really understand. Like the first thing that you do is like the beginning battle when you fucking cut off Sauron's hand like 1,000 years ago or whatever.
Swing!
So, yep. And then you like go into the goblin mine, so you fight that big octopus thing.
Oh, yeah,
And then you fight the giant troll, and then you fight the giant urukai with the hand on its face,
Oh, yeah, and Boromir dies.
Yeah. So you fight that guy, and then you're at Helm, like, so you do all this stuff that happens in the first movie before you even get to. Then you're finally in Fangorn Forest. It's like the fifth.
So it
mission.
gets you all caught up.
Yeah, which I just thought was weird. That's. But
you need a prelogue.
And that's like half the game. But you also, it's like those beginning missions is like those. But you also do it as 3 different characters, as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. So you do
that's
it,
cool, though.
For anybody who's now fucking well versed in Lord of the Rings, you do it as the human, the elf, and
you should.
and
So
the
I mean, it's a
goblin.
literary accomplishment of our time.
What
you
the
need
fuck
to read that book.
is he? Because he's not a goblin. What is he's
Who?
a Gimli?
Gimli is a dwarf.
A dwarf. There we
Come
go.
on.
There we
You're talking to like a fantasy
Yeah.
super nerd, so
Yeah,
I
he's
got
a dwarf.
you
That's
covered.
in the dwarf mine, not the goblin mine. That's
well,
what
the
I said.
goblins were in the dwarf mine, though.
Yeah, in the dwarf mine. Yeah. So it's actually pretty sick. But I don't know why I got away from Red Dead, because I still think about that game all the time. But I think just because I plugged in.
You know
the
what
GameCube,
happened this week. You remember what happened this week?
You see, you got all the legendary animals now, every single one.
No, because I can't get those ones that are close off to me as Arthur.
I thought that the panther was down in there.
No, the panther is down. The legendary cougar, I want to say, is down there.
So I must have got the legendary panther. That must be the one panther I got.
Yeah, that's the one,
legendary
and it requires you
Okay.
to get to a certain point in the
before
it's the
presents
last
itself. Yes.
Master Hunter challenge or something like that. It's one of those.
Some shit like that.
Yeah. But no, there was one panther, and he's down in the same place you get the legendary panther.
Yeah.
But God, dude, it's not a very big patch of
really
forest.
hard. Yeah.
But I mean, I spent probably a day and a half there trying to find this thing. And I was getting to a point where I'd get really like fed up, and I'd like shoot a boar and then like skin it, take the skin, and then go plop it down in like an open area and then put a bunch of predator bait out and stuff right next to it and just sit there and I'd fucking wait and wait. And then I'd traverse the forest like in a grid pattern searching, and it took me forever. But then I finally found it, capped it in the dome with my scoped rifle.
Yeah.
And then skinned it. And
with
then
the rolling rock?
Yeah. And I was
with
able,
the bolt action.
And that was the last thing I needed to get that Legends of the East satchel.
Yeah, that's
but then you got to go out. You got to get the ingredients for that.
Yeah,
which was like it was a cougar, a wolf, and a deer. So
and
that wasn't too hard. That
you got it.
Yeah, because I got my cougar spotting areas down packed. Sometimes they sneak up on me still and they fuck me up. But
and the cougar areas are usually pretty reliable for like one or two. Not a bunch, but you can get a couple while you're there. And and if you can sneak up on them, then you can get a good quality. They're almost always, I feel like they're almost always perfect quality.
Yeah.
Like they're
almost always.
Yeah.
Raccoons, on the other hand.
Motherfuckers, right?
Fucking
Jesus.
I keep running into them, but there's always like a 1 or 2 star.
That's the worst.
And for those of you who are not addicted to Red Dead, you need a 3-star animal because that's a perfect pelt. But I finally got that thing, and now I don't know what to do. So I've been working on the gambling challenges, which is fun. I'm going to the casino tonight, by the way, and
like in real life? Going to the casino?
Oh, shit. Casino night. But it's ironically all week I've been playing like poker and blackjack on Red Dead all the time.
Which is similar to poker in real life. Like that's one thing that can be simulated pretty fairly is poker and stuff. Like online and shit. It can be done pretty fairly.
Yeah, blackjack is I don't know if I've played blackjack in casinos before, and it's
terrible at gambling.
It's weird because there's like this system of you got to watch, like let's say you're like the middle person at like a 5-person table.
Yeah.
Right. And it starts at one end and it goes through. And so as the first guy asks for like a hit, because I'm just going to assume people know how to play blackjack or 21, but somebody will take a hit. You have to watch what card they get. And if it's a low card, okay, you watch. And so if he stays there or whatever, and the guy goes next and he takes another hit, it's another low card. When it comes down to you, if you're sitting there counting on a low card to come out, like you can't do that.
Right.
Like it's bad. For one, it's bad ethics, I guess, at the table, because the guy beside you might need a high card. And statistically speaking, if you were to take a hit now, like you're going to burn that high card for him and screw him over. And so like there's this weird table etiquette that you have to maintain on a blackjack. Not all the time.
I don't know shit about that. I don't know nothing about that.
So it depends on the type of people you're playing with. If they're like the older timer guys that go and play video blackjack every single day, those are the people that really, I think, hold that down. But yeah, so I'm gonna go play me some blackjack probably tonight.
That's what's up. I've literally never left a casino with more money than I walked in with. I don't gamble much.
I've only really gone to a few casinos, but I've never walked out with less money than I started. One time, I think my first time, and that was because I spent the entire time. It was nothing but a slot casino. There was nothing else there.
Yeah,
because it was illegal for them to have card games in the state.
Weird.
Yeah, weird. And so like you go in there and it was just video, slots, and I lost like $40 over the course of a week. I was going to
over the course of a week.
Yeah, I was like at a training area.
Paying fucking
back in
slots,
the Coast
bro?
Guard, and right next to my hotel was a video casino.
You playing penny slots?
I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, that place was designed for like
retirees.
To suck money out of retirees, and so like going in there, and we were just doing it because there was nothing else to do during the time off. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's a liquor store within walking distance and a video casino within walking distance. And so we decided to go to the casino instead and have more fun.
Some places don't have casinos, right?
Yeah, a lot of places it's illegal unless it's on like tribal land.
We're just blessed here.
That's because we have a lot of tribal land.
Hella tribal land.
Yeah, we're not. There's no legal gambling other than I think what do you call those? Pull tabs.
Yeah,
but I think that's
on all the bars, the pull tabs.
Yeah.
I never won any fucking money on pull tabs either,
dude.
I'm telling you, I'm not gambling. That's not me. I gotta tell you, I'm not lucky that way.
I don't usually buy into stuff. I don't even do the lottery most of the time. When I'm in New York, I do this scratch ticket called Win for Life. It's like $1,000 a month for the rest of your life, or
that's
some
pretty
lump sum payment. I don't know, but I play that every time I'm in New York. But other than that, this one time, I was out. We were hanging out. I don't want to necessarily say this person's name, but we were hanging out. You could probably guess who it was. And we went to a bar for, I think we were just out like fucking around, and it was trivia night maybe or something like that. So we went to a bar, and he got some pull tabs and didn't win anything. I think he won maybe like $5 or something like that over the course of it. But he went out to the parking lot to go grab something from his truck. Found a fucking $100 bill.
What?
In the thing. And I will say, to his credit, how many people do you know would like, mind you, he went up, he knew a bunch of people at the bar, not all of them, but a bunch, and he went up to him and be like, hey man, did you fucking lose $100?
Yeah, just to make sure that he wasn't jacking no one's shit.
Yeah, and so he checked all the homies and nobody lost anything, so he kept $100, found it in the parking lot. So the next day we go back to the same bar for breakfast the next day. And we're sitting there, and we're both hung the fuck over and everything. So we're drinking Bloody Marys, and he gets a bunch of pull tabs. Wins $100 off of like $10 worth of pull tabs or something like that, which is another fucking $100. So like walked away $180 up from the night. I will say he did buy people a lot of drinks the night he found the $100. That reinvest in the community, right?
So the last pop culture thing I have that is going to lead us into sports, because I want to talk about Colin Kaepernick next week because I don't have that much time left, but I want to make sure that I am able to go over that. So the next thing I want to talk about the shop, right?
The shop, LeBron James.
LeBron James show, and I really, really, really think that you should watch it.
Okay.
Right.
Is it available on YouTube?
It is.
Or it's on HBO?
It's on HBO.
I got HBO now. I'm covered.
It's done through HBO. And there's 2 seasons. And the first season is like 3 episodes, and the second one is 1 episode. So,
oh, wow.
Just watch
Short.
all. Yep. Watch them. They're like an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half at the most, but it's worth it, right? And so I think that it's interesting because it's like a window into the unfiltered mind of athletes, of musicians, of some comedians that are there, right? And the majority of them are black, right? And at the risk of sounding intersectional to you, right? I think it's interesting because not that I think that their opinions are representative of every black person in America, but across the 4 episodes, there's a mix of probably 40, 45 different black people, white people, people of different races, right? That are in there. And it's good to, in some cases, when they talk about politics and just social issues, to get a perspective that we don't get all the time, you know? And it's especially like when Makai comes in here and stuff like that, I don't want to ask him or any of the dudes from the upper left a bunch of questions about fucking, you know, black politics and stuff like that, because I don't want them to feel like I expect them to understand what it's like for everybody to be black, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's helpful sometimes, in a non-intersectional way, because this is very much not super progressive in your face. This is what it's like, you know, they're just speaking from their perspectives. And so I think in that case, it can be helpful to listen to fucking 8 different black dudes talk about what it's like for them to grow up and for them to be famous, you know, because Jamie Foxx, like this time, was talking about how, because Jamie Foxx is 51 years old, right? Who would have guessed? So Jamie Foxx,
man, that dude's been like 25 since he was 25.
So Jamie Foxx was talking about the difference that between him and like LeBron James in that generation, right? He said when we came through in the 90s,
How old's LeBron?
LeBron James is in his 30s. And
Damn.
So Jamie Foxx said, he said, when we came in on the back of like the civil rights movement. You know, he was like, we were like a bunch of black dudes with a bunch of money, and we didn't have racism up in our face. Like, we were just having a good time. You know, he's like, but you guys now, you have all your money and stuff, but you have social media right there. Like, you're seeing black people getting shot by cops and stuff like that that's happening. That when we first saw that, we were like, that's crazy. You know, like, I can't believe that's even happening. You know, like, because we were almost disconnected from it because we had been able to do that, you know? And not that they didn't think about where they came from, but they just, again, because social media didn't exist then like it does now, it wasn't so up in their face. It wasn't so demanded of them to be involved in social politics. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was really interesting. And so I think that's why it would behoove you to watch this show, because I gained things from it. And I think you would too.
Yeah.
I think everyone should watch this show.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Good. I don't just listen to Larry Elder. Okay. I'm not getting one perspective. I know. He's awesome.
Larry Elder.
He was on an episode of something lately. I got to go back and try to find it.
He was on Fox yesterday.
Oh, I think he was on a
Ben
Sunday's
Shapiro.
Show.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't
I listened to
that.
that.
One. That fucking Dan Crenshaw one.
Yeah. He's great. Dan Crenshaw's great.
Dan Crenshaw
I wish he would
and
move
Derek
here.
Kilmer need to link up.
I wish he would move here.
But I will say this, though, like on that, the intersectional thing that you're talking about, like as a black person growing up, blah, 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 blah. That is not, like when you fight against, or when I fight against intersectional thinking, the thing to remember about intersectionality is that it doesn't take into account that individual's experience.
Yeah.
It takes that individual's experience and absorbs it into the collective.
Yeah.
And so I am very, there is a reason why you should listen to people like that grew up in that time and get their life experience, because there is knowledge there is wisdom, there's things to learn from that. But that should not be your sole basis for, judging things on the whole.
And I really
so I love getting, listening to stuff like that. And even like when I do listen to Larry Elder, he has all sorts of stories from all sorts of different times and stuff like that. But everybody has a different story and has gone through different things.
Yeah.
And it is important to note, because there is obviously a problem in, on the social realm of like the low income black family, generally speaking, people that grow up in like, the quote unquote, the hood, they have massive problems that they've been facing essentially for generations, because that societal area hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Because it's been neglected for a long time. And there is a lot of experiences that need to be examined and looked at to be able to like fix that fucking problem that nobody has bothered to address.
Yeah.
And so in that way, like looking at something intersectionally, it makes sense for certain things, but you can't turn around and apply that knowledge on a grand, big picture scale and an umbrella scale. So, and
that's really what I meant, is that they're not like, none of those people are there to try and express any type of fucking anything other than their story.
Oh, and I get
like,
that.
That's not like, and that's all that I meant, is that that's not by any means the intent of the show. Like he's very much there. LeBron James is very much there, just kind of hosting a conversation.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that like, by you saying like not to look at it intersectionally, but it's okay to do that in specific situations, especially when you're looking at an individual's experience and trying to see like, because it is important that as a society, we need to know the details of things that happen. Right. Because collectively there might be something we can actually address that at, and see if this is a massive problem, we should address it.
And in this particular, at the risk of spoiling some shit, but in this particular episode, LeBron James was talking about, he said that he stays up sometimes thinking about 11, like a group of 11 friends he had in particular, or 10 friends, him including 11, and he had 5 of them that were dead, 5 of them now that are alive and that are with him, thriving in the sports community, doing things, in different capacities. And it's like, I wonder all the time, what about me sent me down this path instead of the other one, that put me in this group instead of the other one. And he said, he thought very much that it was the support system, that for whatever reason, the town he came from saw him and bound together and said, we cannot let this kid fail. Like, we have to do everything we can to make sure that he makes it, and he's like, and why? What about me made them do that, and it's interesting just to hear people consider their place in the world from a larger place than we're at, in certain terms, right? It's really interesting.
Highly informative.
And like I told you, Antonio Brown is on there, so it's interesting to hear him talking about his experience in the league and with Ben, because he talked a bunch of shit about Ben Roethlisberger and about the coach Mike Tomlin. He also said that he doesn't have an ego, which last week he said that 2 weeks ago, he said he wanted people to call him Mr. Big Chest.
Yeah, he doesn't have an ego.
What the fuck, man? You're going to try and sit here and say you don't have an ego. That's some bullshit.
Okay, everyone has an ego, right?
Yeah.
But the people that talk about not having an ego,
they have a big ego.
Big one.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
what.
So I think you should check it out. I think you should check
Trump's
out.
ego.
I think you should check out that show.
I think I will.
Yeah, it's really good. So that's the last thing I have. So we can move on to motherfucking sports. So the first thing, and this is big for us, you know, Frank Clark is right. That DN for the Hawks.
Yep.
Motherfucker got franchise tag this week.
Oh.
Right? You remember what a franchise tag is for those who don't know?
He's not going anywhere.
Correct. This year, so franchise tag, for those who don't know, means that he's going to get paid the average of the top 5 players at that position this year, right? So last year he was on his rookie contract. He was making a little like around $900,000 a game.
Tough life.
Or around $900,000. Do you know how much he's going to make this year?
No.
Not $900,000 a game, $900,000 for a season, right?
Season, yeah.
This year, $17.1 million. He's going to make 17 times what he made last year. Frank Clark had 13 sacks. Yes, last year he had an interception as a fucking D end. Frank Clark is here, baby. So,
well, that's good though.
That's really exciting. I'm happy that Frank Clark is here.
So much money.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good.
It never ceases to amaze me.
And he's
what
happy.
What did you do with $17 million, Donovan?
Man, a lot.
A lot.
A lot of stuff.
A lot.
I buy a house for myself and for my mom. Buy a bunch of land, actually, is what I would buy, and I would build a house, is what I would do. I would buy a lot of stuff. I would
help you out with that, because it is not an easy process in this county to build your own house.
I'll definitely hire you guys to do all my surveying.
No, well, we got you covered, baby. Engineering, survey, I got you.
We'll do everything.
All fronts, baby.
We also re-signed our Jesus Christ, our defensive back Akeem King. He got a 1-year deal, $1.4 million. Houston placed a franchise tag on an outside linebacker, Jadeveon Clowney, who is a fucking monster. The Cowboys franchise tag DN DeMarcus Lawrence. The franchise tag deadline was last week. That's why a bunch of these are. So that's why this.
So everybody's getting their franchise tags.
Yeah, it's got to be announced by last week. It doesn't have to be finalized until I think June 15th. Until then, they can still negotiate for a larger contract. But this says they have the intent to put a franchise tag on them. So
it's good. Force things along the road a little bit.
Right. Cowboys,
too much money riding on this, man.
The Cowboys franchise tag DeMarcus Lawrence, one of their DNs, and we talked about last week. They had 2 people on their D line that got suspended for indefinitely, for drugs. So we'll see, because they're obviously they're gonna have to draft some talent this year. So the combine is over now, and the draft is just coming in a couple weeks. I don't remember. I didn't write down the date or anything like that.
So pause button on the combine.
Yes.
Russell Wilson was in the combine this year, right?
No.
Maybe I just saw some.
Rookies.
That's what I thought.
So they'll
Wilson.
So they'll bring back highlights and stuff from when he was in the combine.
That motherfucker was fast.
Yeah.
Still is fast.
That's footage from when he was in the combine.
That's what I thought. Because he looked way too young.
Right.
But God, man, he looked good.
Right.
He's a beautiful human. I would tell you that much.
Yeah. No, he looked great.
He impresses me.
He's fast.
Every day. He's out there doing the God's work, he's going to visit the children. He's visiting the children. He's hanging out with his terrible wife, Sierra, God bless her, and ruining the Seahawks. But
you don't like Sierra?
I have a problem. I have a problem with her ruining Russell. She is the Yoko Ono to the Seahawks. That's right. Calling her out.
Damn.
And I know I'm not the only person that thinks that. For whatever reason, and actually, I think that's pretty overblown. But
no, stick to your guns.
Ever since he got married, the team has gone fucking downhill.
Ooh.
But the problem
Shots fired.
The problem is that it's coincidental with a lot of other major things that happened in the Seahawks.
Do you think it's because he was a virgin before and he's not now?
He wasn't a virgin, but he was celibate, right? Either way, he wasn't having sex. And that, I think helped him in the long run.
Yeah.
And
the celibacy
was a big deal. I think that's what got us to the Super Bowl.
Tim Tebow's a virgin.
Now he's getting in on the reg, and now he has problems. But it's not even that, because the Seahawks.
Well, it's like they used to tell you.
The team has changed every year.
Yeah.
We've gone just like every other football, other than the stupid Patriots. Just like every other team that goes to the Super Bowl, there is a low run after your Super Bowl high. Generally speaking. And that's what we're going through, I think. Hopefully we'll get back. I don't actually think it's because of him or because of Sierra, but I'm going to blame it on her because I can't blame Russ.
I feel good about this year. We have like $54 or so million of cap room. And that's pretty good, for going into free agency. We got, this whole year to negotiate with Russell because we're going to have to pay him out the dick if we want to keep him because he deserves it, Yeah. But like I said, we got a good amount of money to go into the free agency with because we're going to draft some people. We may or may not keep our first round pick. John Snyder likes to trade away the first round pick and get a bunch of other picks. So we may or may not have that when the draft comes around, but we got a good amount of money for a rookie contract is cheap as fuck. Rookie contract ain't shit, especially if they're third, fourth, fifth round. That's fucking no money. And that's where the Seahawks make their money. That's where we found Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, shit like that. Like those people came in the mid rounds and they crafted them into fucking legends.
Well, I mean, but just think about it. I'm speaking out of pure ignorance here because I don't know how it works. But
I love you.
When compared to a fantasy draft, your first pick is not always that great. It seems like a big deal at the time, but it never really seems to pay dividends in the long run.
It does not always.
It's those fucking mid to low round picks where like they really, really affect you. And is that the same game?
That's where the money is made.
In the real NFL draft, is the first round pick, other than being, star-studded and spectacular, is it really worth it in the long run?
Sometimes. I mean, there's some people, like last year, Baker Mayfield, he was the first overall pick. And in the beginning, he was a little shaky towards the end of the season. He was great.
Yeah, he was great.
Overall, in his whole career, Baker Mayfield looks like he's going to be awesome. Yeah. There's some people who have been.
I was glad to pick him up last year.
I think that it does. Most of the time, people who go in the first round will have a lengthy career, barring some type of career-ending injury. But I do agree that there is an immense amount of insane talent that goes overlooked or at least waited on until the third or fourth, round. There's a lot of shit that comes out then. Royce Freeman, and people will call me biased until the end of time. Royce Freeman is a running back, came from Oregon last year, went to the Broncos, and then there was an undrafted free agent named Philip Lindsay that came on that got brought up by the Broncos, who's incredible and took over everything. And Royce Freeman hardly got anything done, but Royce Freeman is, I believe, right? And I would look this up, but if you looked at all of the people who faced the most, stack the box, right? Stack the box. So you put as many players here as you can that are going to rush. He faced some of the top 5 in stacked box positions in the league, right? That's gonna hinder your ability to get shit done, right? And so
it's kind of like how Russ, I don't think he's not playing,
and he did not go first round. He was a mid round pick.
Yeah, and I don't think Russ is operating anywhere near his potential.
They're still figuring it out.
They need that O-line to figure their shit out. And they got the protection he needs to do what he does best.
And they had the new offensive coordinator last year in Schottenheimer, where he was so focused on running, and they're still trying to figure out, because Russell Starr is starting to get older. They don't want him to have to run as much as he was before, but when he does run, he makes fucking magic with it. He's still able to break off big pieces last year. Some people talking about him getting fat. That's some bullshit. I don't even want to fucking hear that. That's nonsense, right? Because it's just the season. The season just ended. I'll fucking wait until he goes, because he always shows up for in the beginning, before football season starts, he trains, with baseball a little bit and fucks around. So I'll wait until OTA start and then we'll talk about,
I like how baseball as a football player's practice.
He played baseball in college. So he'll show up just for spring practice and stuff because it's good, just all around involved. I do not believe he is signed with the Yankees, but is involved with the Yankees. So he shows up and does spring training and stuff like that. Not spring training,
fuck the Yankees though.
Fucks around that, but that's because there's a guy coming into the NFL this year named Kyler Murray. He's a quarterback, and they also talked about he wasn't sure whether he was going to go and play professional baseball or professional football. There's some people who are good enough to do either. Obviously, Russell Wilson was better at the NFL. I don't know that he would have the same type of career if he played baseball. Yeah. He's got a Super Bowl fucking ring in the NFL, so he's doing pretty good here, So
was it Russ that was he's a good baseball player, right? He used to play baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was an honorary member of the team for
And that's what I'm saying.
What
I'm saying. I don't know exactly what the deal is with his shit in baseball, but I know he shows up, works out with the teams, and plays some off-season games, but I don't know exactly what the deal is the contract, with anything, you know, I don't think he makes money to play there, you know, but they let him show up and play. So I don't know what
he's probably a good enough player,
but he doesn't
he's
play
at
like
a level of athleticism to be a good member of the practice squad.
And he doesn't play like during the regular season, you know, but he plays like in but I don't know exactly. So I'll look into that too.
That's
so
cool though. I like that how, you know, because athletes are athletes.
Yeah.
You know, and if dude wants to go out and play some baseball in whatever way he can at whatever level he should be playing, that's awesome.
That's like Michael Jordan did that.
Can't do anything but benefit your overall career.
Tim Tebow plays baseball now.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why that makes sense. It's just, it's fun to poke fun at Tim Tebow.
Okay, I got to finish these up so that we can
get out of here. Sorry.
So, no, you're good. So, the Falcons franchise, no, that's a good conversation. That's good. I like when you get involved with sports. I like when we have a conversation about sports.
I like when I can have a conversation.
Really good. I'm happy that happened. I'm not mad about it. The Falcons franchise, franchise tag their DN Grady Jarrett. The Ravens released safety Eric Weddle, who's fucking fantastic, and then the Rams signed him to a 2-year deal right after that. So the Rams defense is just growing even more.
Don't give it to the Rams, man.
And Ndamukong Suh only signed a 1-year deal last year, so I think they're going to let him see what's up with the free agency because he wants a fuckload of money on Ndamukong Suh, and they're about to have to start really paying people. The Rams, they only have a small window where Jared Goff is still on his rookie contract because they just had to pay Todd Gurley last year, and so
when's his rookie contract up? A year or two?
I think Jared Goff has 2 more years. Like I think this is his 4th year, and then they probably have a 5th-year option on it. So,
all right, calling it right now. Rams are going to take the Super Bowl next year.
So we'll see what
it's happening.
I'm interested to see what happens. The Browns released their linebacker Jamie Collins, who's fucking fantastic. Pretty sure he's a Pro Bowler. The Broncos agreed to trade Case Keenum, who's the quarterback they signed last year. But remember, they just got Joe Flacco. From the Ravens. And so they traded Case Keenum and a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick. Why didn't I write down who they traded it to? But Case Keenum is ass. That's why they had to trade him and a 7th-round pick just to get a fucking 6th-round pick. It's
that bad. They got to unload.
The Broncos released safety Darian Stewart. The Bills, on Thursday, it looked like the Bills were going to trade for Antonio Brown. And then when I woke up Friday, Antonio Brown had said, I'm not fucking playing in Buffalo. Like, we're not trading for Buffalo. No, whatever.
It's too cold up there.
It was expected that they were going to have a trade ready by Friday, and nothing has happened yet. But now I guess there's some reports he's telling people around him that he's likely to be in Oakland. So we'll see where he goes. The Steelers said they want a 1st-round pick for Antonio Brown. The Raiders have 3 first-round picks. So we'll see where they're at with it. The Giants traded their linebacker Olivier Vernon, who's fantastic, to the Browns for offensive guard Kevin Zeitler, however whatever it is. The Dolphins cut Danny Amendola. The Eagles are looking to trade Dean Michael Bennett. They traded Dean Michael Bennett and a 7th-round pick to the Pats for a 2020 5th-round pick. So the Patriots have Michael Bennett now. And I think he had
what?
Yeah, I think he had 8 or 9 sacks last year, and he didn't play full time. He split his snaps with other people because the Eagles had so many people on their D line.
I hate you, Patriots, so much.
The Steelers traded their offensive guard Marcus Gilbert to the Cardinals for a 6th-round pick. The Cardinals cut Mike Glennon and Antoine Bethea, and the Jaguars released Carlos Hyde and D-tackle Malik Jackson, and the Chargers re-signed Denzel Perriman to a 2-year deal.
Damn.
That's it. It was a big week. There's lots of shit that happened this week. Oh, I got to get a line ready.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So before you go, one quick question. We don't have to get too deep on it. But
tell me.
How do you think when it comes to whether or not you make a decision as a football player to say I'm going to go to Buffalo, what percentage of that decision is going, I have to go live in fucking Buffalo?
I think it depends on the player. Because it depends where you're from.
Who wants to do that?
And I don't know where Antonio Brown came from. I don't know what school he went to. And I don't know where he was raised.
No offense against Buffalo, but the weather is really shitty. Some
people love the snow.
Some
you know,
people
that's
love
what I'm
the
saying.
snow.
It depends. Like there's
Yeah.
some people who
Real
love the snow.
personal
There's some
preference.
people who never played in it, so they don't like it, so they don't
Mhm.
want to play it. You know, X amount of games in the snow per year. There's some people who, even if they were from Florida, they went to school in New York, so they played X amount of games in the snow, so they're used to it. You know,
Yeah.
it depends totally on the person. But I would imagine for some people, most people, the weather plays some into where they want to play.
Yeah.
But Antonio Brown still has 1 year left on his contract. He's getting traded. So
Yeah,
where
at
he
the end
gets
of the
traded
day-
is where it goes. But also if he goes there, if he's getting ready to be traded and he tells the team, I will not play for this team. I will hold out all year. I don't give a fuck. I'll take the cut. I won't take the money. I will hold out. Then they're not going to want to trade for him because it's a waste of their time, waste
Yeah.
of whatever they traded to the Steelers to get a first round pick is what they're asking for. So I think it
Ultimately,
depends.
yeah, it just depends on whether or not he wants to make that decision himself.
Exactly. And he's a big enough personality, and does enough on the field.
He can demand.
He has a little bit of leeway
Yeah.
in almost anywhere he goes, unless he goes to the Giants or to the Falcons or something like that. He's going to be the number one wide receiver. You know, there's very few people who, even though he's getting older, who are going to be miles above Antonio Brown, you know? So, at this point, he has a fairly big bargaining chip in saying like, listen, I'm a top 5 wide receiver every year until I retire. Like that's where I'm at, you know?
Mhm.
So, cause I think he even missed
Got a
game
little
or-
weight behind there.
I think he even missed a game or two this year and still was top 5. So
Damn.
you're balling, you know?
He gets to make a little sway in them.
Exactly.
decisions.
And he fucking, you know, he's got 1 more year and he wants to get fucking paid if he's going to get another contract next year. So there's a
Word.
whole deal. So
What do you got?
oh man, have I ever told you that sex workers use fruit during the act? Yes, citrus masks the taste. It masks the taste of a dirty penis. In fact, 95% of fruit has already been in someone's orifice before it hits the market.
Why would you tell me these things?